Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota that is always late, apparently. And tonight I am joined by Mr. Richard Hoeg of Hoeg Law. Virtual Legality is the show. How's it going, man?
It's going great for me. Yeah. I first of all, I think for any live stream, within 5 minutes has to count. I think that works. But no, I'm happy to be here. Happy to be chilling out. I do a lot of very, very serious streams on virtual legality. So, it's nice to maybe take it down a notch here. And certainly I don't do a ton of streams past midnight. So we'll see. We'll see how I do.
I think you'll do just fine. I have all of the faith in the world in you. Tonight, of course, will be very laid back conversations, but we are open. We are open to questions and input on these topics from you guys out there in the chat, of course, because these topics are going to hit a little bit like lately. I've been covering this Supreme Court nomination, which is like, yes, it's important and all, but this isn't what people do during the day, right? Like you watch TV, you play video games, you kick back for some entertainment. And so we're going to hit some of these areas where law and entertainment collide. Yeah. And that's like your wheelhouse.
Well, when I was kind of concepting out the channel 3 years ago plus, I don't know how much people need to know about this, but I had a couple deals fall through at the end of the year, which if you're a transactions attorney, that happens. You say, oh, well, if they all happen at once, got a little time. And I decided to make the channel. And one of the things I wanted to do was talk about potentially serious stuff, contracts, the way people interact in a way that didn't capture all this extra political sensitivity, other energy, that we could talk kind of a little bit more neutrally, because who doesn't want to talk about whether Spider-Man is going to be captured back by Sony and not allowed to participate in the Avengers, when we can talk about what negotiations look like and how resources of different variations operate in a realistic fashion in all kinds of things, but talking about Spider-Man and Disney and Marvel. So that was kind of the goal. And one of the things that I love the most is the gaming industry. I have a book of business that includes software and tech folks. And so I said, hey, let's start talking about this. And that very first video was, hey, a lot of people are interested in refunding Fallout 76. I don't know how many of you remember that or even still play it. Maybe you still play it. But people were, hey, Rick, can I get a refund for this? Did they falsely advertise this game? And, a lot of virtual legality is talking people back from the ledge and saying, yeah, you could sue anybody for anything. It might be a little bit difficult. You're going to spend a lot of money on lawyers and talking to people.
Your $60 game.
Yeah, will the FTC act on this? And I'm like, okay, so, possibly if things get bad enough, but the FTC has an order of operations, right? Are those drugs lying and do they kill people? Does this refrigerator spoil person's food and kill them? That it takes a while to get down to luxury item below $100. And so you just have to understand that.
To be fair, though, if you played the initial release of Fallout 76, you may not have been killed, but you may have killed yourself.
Right. Sure. Kind of intentional infliction of emotional distress. Right. Todd Howard coming up in there and saying it's going to be great.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I couldn't even bother myself with it. Like, as more information came out about it, I was like, I'm good.
I think it was on Game Pass, or it is on Game Pass. And that's when I popped my head in and I said, essentially, there's way too many really good games out there. I mean, I don't think Fallout 76 is like a disaster anymore. I think there's a game there, but there's just so many options. And I think the limiting reactant for me is time, right? You get done doing whatever you're doing, running a law firm and a YouTube channel, and then you say, what can I do with an hour and a half? What can I actually play that I want to play? And that tends to focus you very specifically.
So how does that focus you lately? What are you playing?
Well, right now, I just came from a session of playing Tiny Tina Wonderland with my brother, which is the latest in the Borderlands series. It's effectively, I mean, it really, honest to God, is Borderlands 4 or 5, depending on where you put the variations of what they've released. But excellent time, very good session, couple hours, and really more my speed. I think Borderlands was getting a state of humor that was a little bit too edgelordy for me, a little bit too trying to be hip and cutting. And this one, which is set in a fantasy environment where they're pretending to play the Borderlands world's Dungeons and Dragons, is a significantly more witty. And it's got a crazy cast. It's got Andy Samberg and Will Arnett. And so far, so good. 2-3 hour session of delightful is really what I would characterize it at, which is not what I would have expected if you'd asked me 3 hours ago.
Yeah, that's I hadn't even heard. I say I haven't heard of it, but I think I just saw some cover art for it floating around on something. I don't know why. Maybe I got an ad or what, but something.
Do you play games, Nick?
Yeah.
I mean, like regularly?
I try to.
Okay.
I got really busy for a while and wasn't playing much. Plus, I have this perpetual crippling sadness when I play games because they're never what I want.
Oh no.
But lately I've been actually enjoying the hell out of Elden Ring.
Yep, that's everybody's favorite. Elden Ring is gonna, go steaming through the Game of the Year awards unless Starfield really does something special at the end of the year. I'm not the biggest Souls Bloodborne player. I think Elden Ring is the most approachable and best entertainment that I've had from it. I got through basically the first few areas past the first boss. And then I essentially wanted to play something else. It was 35 hours or so.
Sure.
And then I bounced into some other things. I really enjoyed Ghostwire Tokyo that came out this week as well. But yeah, Elden Ring has got it going on. You can see exactly why it's so popular. And certainly it's just got oodles and oodles of style and art and content. So if you're really having a good time, you're going to have a good time for another 150 hours. And that's impressive. So I see why people love it. Not really my favorite genre. So I enjoyed it for the 30 hours and I'll probably pop back into it sometime later.
Yeah. I only played Dark Souls 1 and I only played that like a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay.
I was way late to it. I never really got into the Souls games. But I had a decent enough time playing Dark Souls 1 on Twitch that I was like, well, Elden Ring is going to be pretty fun to play on Twitch because people could just make fun of me constantly for dying over and over again. And they have done so. They've done so very well. But I'm legitimately enjoying it. I'm like 58 hours in, which I haven't spent 58 hours in like in a AAA title in a really long time.
And do you feel like you're close to anywhere the finish line on that? 58 hours, I can't imagine.
I have no idea. I don't think so.
No,
and
I don't think so either.
The best part is I don't really care.
Yeah.
I'm treating it like an ARPG, man. I'm just running around. I got a big hammer that's way too big and just smashing into stuff. And I haven't put any points into health at all. And everybody keeps yelling at me. They're like, stop getting one shot. And I'm like, no,
just don't get hit. It's no problem. Just don't get hit.
Exactly.
No, more power to you for putting that live on stream. Because it's one of those where I was actually thinking about that at some sequence where I was dying to birds 18 times and not advancing anything. I was like, yeah, people would be yelling at me for this.
Yeah, they the chat has its way with you, but I really enjoy it. So that's been good. But normally, lately, I've been just digging on indie games, particularly roguelikes or roguelites. One of my favorites is Risk of Rain 2, which I have a lot of fun playing that. Gotta
be careful with your time on that one. 3 hours can melt away.
Yeah, but see, that's why I liked the roguelike games initially. I was like, oh, I can pop in this game. It'll be like 20 minutes or whatever session is no problem. Then you get Risk of Rain. It's like, once you start getting good, it's like, oh wait, no, that was an hour and a half on just that one run. Oh my God. And yeah, it'll suck your time. But I just love what indie games are able to do these days because they're able to
I often say, I miss the varied nature of what was AAA or AA at the time of the PlayStation 2 era, a little bit beyond, where you got just wacky ideas from these companies. And we're really in pipelines of first person and third person shooters and action adventures now. And the indies are doing the really, really fun stuff. So I totally agree there. I was playing game called Nobody Saves the World, which I was really enjoying. That was I think a Game Pass game. But
Sure.
yeah, indies are where the fun lives to some extent, and then you get to see the big guys pull some of the ideas there and polish them up and spend $100 million, and that's fun too. But indies are really cool. And as a guy that loves entrepreneurship and dreamers and people mortgaging their house to realize their commercial ambitions and all those kinds of things, I have a real respect for the people that just go after it with like a 4-person studio and see what they can do. And honestly, that's where a lot of the best ideas come from.
Okay, so there's a game I want you to look at.
Sure.
And it's got some interesting, we'll say some interesting similarities to a very popular IP. But the game is super fun. And
Okay.
it's like $3. It's called Vampire Survivors.
Okay. Vampire Survivors. What kind of game is it like?
I can't really tell you. It doesn't, it's not like anything I've really, it's I think the ad for it is you become the bullet hell.
Okay.
So you
right.
have a little character. It's like 16-bit or 8-bit pixel art, and it's, I mean, it's like directly stolen from Castlevania. Every character is it's like clearly stolen from Castlevania, which is what makes it fun. But that's not the draw of the game at all. And the names are all changed, but you can kind of tell. But anyway, you start out and you have like one weapon, and the weapon runs on a rhythm, right? So it's going to fire off on a rhythm. You never decide when to shoot something. And you run around away from enemies that are swarming you and try to kill them with the weapon. Then as you level up, you get additional weapons, and then those things level up at the same time. But the maximum amount of time to play through a run is basically 30 minutes. You have a pretty much a hard limit at a half hour per run.
That's useful.
And it's a lot of fun.
All right, I'm putting it on my list. I had not heard of it,
good.
so I'm putting it on my list.
The question is, how sued should they be by Castlevania?
Well, certainly not game design elements, right? But what are you going to do with if they're direct asset rips? They've got a case. If they're moderately changed, what do I always say on my channel, right? Facts and circumstances, people. It's all suppositions and guesswork. Intellectual property law is no fun to be in. But yeah, I mean, if Konami turned around and decided to make a symbol of them, you'd probably have to listen to that cease and desist letter. I don't even know if Konami knows that any games are out there if they're not pachinko machines at this point in time. So you might be safer than if you're looking at somebody like Nintendo or someone else.
Oh, Nintendo is brutal on IP, so
they come after you.
But it's a good one. It's a lot of fun. It's super cheap. It's really accessible, but it's also it's very challenging with a good learning curve. But once you learn it, you can do really well. So I like to recommend it to people.
I'll play that. Bullet Hell is fun. Did you play Returnal? I love Returnal.
I did not. That's exactly, Returnal is like what you were talking about, where they take an indie concept like Bullet Hell and they crank a whole bunch of money into it and put it in this AAA sheen almost, right?
Yeah, well, Returnal is an odd duck, right? Because the Housemarque, the company that makes that, was making Bullet Hell. They were making variations of those kinds of games, and then they put it in a third-person roguelike type game. And the very first thing you figure out when you're playing that is that you've got a target in front of you, you're using a gun, but you don't play it like you're in some kind of precision shooter. You play it like a bullet hell game. You're going to hold down that trigger. You're going to try to keep the frame on the enemies, but you're otherwise going to be watching very carefully where the orbs are coming in and dodging before prioritizing actually hitting the other things. And that's a wild change of pace, and playing it from that perspective is so good. Returnal was one of my favorite games of last year. And just reminded me of that when you were talking about Bullet Hell. Just a fantastic shooter, but it does take a minute to get used to it based on the inputs that you're seeing. You're ready to play it as something like Gears of War or something, and that's wrong.
Oh, the shrieking of the games journalists over Returnal was hilarious.
I felt bad. I'm like, I have a number of video games journalists, let's call it acquaintances on Twitter, and I'm sitting here going like, So they were talking about, I'm 23 hours in, and there's an act break. About halfway through the game, you can really lock in your gains and then proceed to the second half of the game. And all of those folks are complaining about it. And I think I only sent the picture to my brother, but I think I got through the first 3 acts in 2.5 hours. Now, some of that was luck. I just, sometimes it works for you. But I was like, is this? It's not. I'm not that good at these things. It's not. I'm not bragging. I'm pretty bad. I can't get through Elden Ring as fast as some of you. But in that particular game, it was like, I'm not so sure this one is as hard as everybody says, because they do what I love, which is that they telegraph, they signal what they're going to do. That's what works in, From Software games and Elden Ring is you have to learn it. You have to figure out what it is, but they're fair. They're very fair about, this is going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of stuff, but you can do it. You just have to learn what's going to happen. And Returnal is exactly that way to me. I love it to death. But it did kick out. It did kick out some folks. And that's the worst feeling in the world, right? So I have some sympathy there where you are enjoying it. You get 3/4 of the way through and just like, I cannot get past the organ guy or whatever it is in whatever game. And it feels bad. So I'm sympathetic, but Returnal was not, they were not covering themselves in glory.
Yeah, that formula, the reason I like it is because it reminds me of playing 8-bit games and 16-bit games, because the way
Kari Warriors,
and the way they made a lot of these games hard was they didn't have AI processing or like really anything more than build a pattern into the game,
right,
and then make the player execute the pattern with enough precision, and that so you just ramp up the pattern precision, and that ramps up the difficulty, but they'll all be beatable. And then the crazy thing is how effective speed running becomes on those games, because really when you nail down the patterns and just lay it down into one streamlined thing, you're going to get very fast through games that should take a really long time, or would take a normal person a really long time.
Absolutely. You start playing it as a rhythm game.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially you've got, what to do to get across this level in a minute and 30 seconds. You watch a Ninja Gaiden run, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, and you're like, I've played Ninja Gaiden. You can't beat that game in an entire summer. How are you going to beat it in 15 minutes? But they do. It's wild.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
But I want to address one thing in the chat real quick. Somebody says,
sure.
Any platformer is taking things from Mega Man, Castlevania, and Metroid. Yeah, correct. But this one, the art, the character design, they changed the names of the characters, but many of the characters are directly lifted from Castlevania.
That's what I assumed you meant. You got a Belmont there.
The starting guy is a Belmont. Alucard is in the game. Sylph from Castlevania 3 is in the game. I mean, they're there. They're very specific. So
you can always hope that company thinks that you're helping them market their stuff, or that, Konami just isn't paying attention at all to anything. Hey, give it a shot. Not official legal advice.
Right. Definitely not. Definitely not. You may get different advice if you hire Richard to talk about it. But if you are an aspiring video game designer, you do still run an active law firm that deals with these types of issues, right?
Well, so I'm a transactions attorney. I think that sometimes gets lost when we're talking about these kinds of things. So I do software contracts, I do video game contracts, I talk about publishing agreements, that kind of thing, and they always dovetail with intellectual property, right? Like, so that's the very first thing you learn. Like, the very first thing I did as a lawyer was specifically mergers and acquisitions, venture capital, that kind of thing, high finance, and working with entrepreneurs as target companies. 2008 crash happens, and essentially my firm, I'm working in big law at the time, says, go find a book of business because venture capital is drying up. And I said, well, I love software. I love technology, better living through technology. I love that stuff. And SaaS was still coming into popularity, and the firm didn't necessarily have super strong capability there. So I effectively learned what folks were doing with SaaS contracts. That led into
SaaS being software as a service.
Yes. I try not to use, just random vernacular. But yeah, software as a service, particularly hosted server-side software. And that takes a certain amount of novel contracting. In fact, to be frank, it still does. SaaS is one of those interesting areas where, depending on the vendor and the company, you're still going to get wild contracts in terms where people aren't really thinking through what is happening with the transaction. So I love that stuff. I love finding an area of law that still has problems and helping clients through that kind of thing. But if you were to say, hey, we're thinking about prosecuting a copyright issue, or I've got the cease and desist letter, I say, fantastic. I'm glad you reached out. Let me direct you to my copyright referral firm here, because I'm not a litigator, and there are words you can say in that response letter. There are things that you can do that'll make your life much better than if I were to try to take a crack at it. Law is very specialized, and that's why I have folks that I trust with that kind of thing. But I appreciate you thinking I do that. A lot of people do. Contracts.
Well, I also meant that if you're looking at being an independent game developer, there are other aspects that certainly do come into that do involve contract, right? Like
Absolutely.
you've got Steam as a big distributor, so you got to know what you're getting into with their marketing agreements and the distribution platforms that you're going to go to. You have potentially now, I mean, games as a service is something that a lot of people hate, myself included, but it's a model that's not going away because it's so dang profitable.
A lot of people spending money. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a way to take care of stuff on the back end that's hard to take care of on the front end. And a lot of that has to do with in this multiplayer environment, anti-cheat and anti hacking or modification stuff, that you take care of a lot of stuff server side that people then don't have access to just easily modify a character on their own computer.
Yeah. And we've certainly seen it work out for companies. We've certainly seen companies handle it a little bit poorly, which anybody that's following Gran Turismo 7 and Sony dipping their toes directly into first-party games as a service knows is primarily a single-player game, and went down like a box of lead when their services went down, when they issued a patch that apparently broke their game and people lost the rights to play it for 30 hours. And then a few days later, when the PlayStation Network goes down, as it periodically does, you lose again the ability to play Gran Turismo 7. And mostly they send out apology letters. They sent out a big one today that said, we're real bad at this. And that leads backwards in time to, hey, we bought Bungie, but we got to actually get that deal done. And when we told you we bought them because they know how to do live services, and we looked around and nobody knows it here, and that's what we want to do, that deal makes a ton more sense than simply paying, $4 billion for Destiny, which you're not going to realize solely on that asset. So Bungie has been purchased by Sony to save the day on stuff like you're seeing right now with respect to Gran Turismo. But yeah, I don't blame anybody for not liking that model, but it just makes too much damn money.
Yeah. Well, and especially, I mean, when you think of software as a service and you or games as a service, but you take it out of the context of the major gaming industry that we think of and put it into the mobile gaming industry, which is where infinite money is just printed. I mean, my God, if I could come up with some compelling touch screen simulator like every other one, where people will just dump thousands of dollars a month into them. I'm looking at this. I'm like, man, I have trouble paying $60 for a AAA game because I'm like, it's just going to be fun. And then these people get on there and they're just like on their phone, like, oh yeah, $100. Oh yeah, $100.
You do
well. Oh yeah, here's some more resources. Like I would grift the hell out of everybody if I could figure that out.
I had a colleague in, again, big law, senior partner, really respect the judgment. And he was playing, I can't remember. I want to say it's Clash of Clans. And he was telling me, it's like, I got to get my nation state up to speed. So I dropped 250 on it last night, but we're going to do more this weekend. We're planning a raid or whatever. I was like, how much would you say you spent? He's like, a few thousand. And I'm like, that's amazing. That is amazing, because you just get into this loop and space. And hey, if you're getting the utility out of it, I'm not anyone to tell you how you spend your money, but it's amazing the kind of mindset that those kinds of games can put out there. When I very much hope that doesn't come in full force to console plastic boxes under a TV gaming, but I do have my concerns.
Yeah, and the way that it tends to work, I think, is it's in audience targeting. They go because a lot of people get, you see the news stories, like some kid spends thousands of dollars of parents' money or whatever. That's not who they're targeting, though. They're targeting like retirees with solid, stable but sufficient incomes that will that can sit and enjoy these games. And if you start like looking around forums and stuff, you'll find a lot of older people are playing these games because they've made their lot in life. They like something, and so then a game comes out that is from something, one of these properties that they enjoy, and
Sure.
they will, as the month rolls in, their check comes in, they'll spend a portion of it, they'll budget it out, and they'll be very, very happy dumping hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars a month into a game. Whereas these AAA developers are over there begging me like, no, like we really need to raise the cost of the game to $70. And people are like, how dare you, EA? It's like then Farmville comes along. And so it's like, here, have my house.
Well, that's the funny part when you look at like the Activision Blizzard acquisition, right? Which is what we call it, except the real name of the company, or at least all the companies that it holds, is Activision Blizzard and King. And King is the ones that makes all the revenue for that company. But when we talk about it in hardcore gaming space or what have you, we don't talk about those. Even though if you look at their revenue lines, it's like that's the juggernaut, that's the crazy revenue generating company. And that's one of the reasons Microsoft is moving to buy them, is because Microsoft really doesn't have that foothold in that specific space. And if they own King, that's going to give them that information from an institutional perspective, as well as the assets that they already have. So, I mean, there's so many drivers from mobile gaming and that kind of thing that is missed as part of the story, because for the most part, our demographic, what we enjoy, what we play, don't care about it. But it is driving a lot of the decisions that we see made that we do care about.
It's amazing how people are so willing to pump money into those games. Cause it's like, man, they do. And they're addictive. Obviously famously, Darkside Phil is known for playing WWE champions and spending, something like $40,000 on it. But I would wager that DSP isn't anywhere near one of the bigger spenders on some of those games.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Well, I mean,
crazy. I'm sure that senior partner I was telling you about was essentially lowballing it. But you describe older people that have made their lot in life. You got a senior partner at a big law firm, they're going to make millions, and chances are the associates are the ones billing the work. So, hey, good job if you can get it, by the way. Just skipping right ahead to the partner that doesn't have to do the work. But yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And we see it somewhat in console. I mean, we see it with Fortnite. We see it with other places like that. But yeah, Sony's going to be doing a lot more live services. Microsoft's going to be doing a lot more live services. It's just, even from just a fiduciary perspective, just in terms of making sure that you're going down the roads that could be lucrative for your shareholders, these companies bare minimum have to explore them and realistically have to go get the experience to make them.
Right. Hey, did the Diablo mobile game ever come out?
Still in process. I mean, you might know this, but Blizzard's had some tough times, lost a few people. They've had a talent drain at the old company since everything went down last summer. So everything got delayed. Overwatch 2 got delayed. The new Diablo got delayed. The mobile Diablo got delayed. I think it's still coming out soon, I want to say.
But I have no idea. I have no faith. Like I think I'm pretty much past playing it, but I enjoyed Diablo 2 Resurrected for what it was. It was a lot of fun. It was good to revisit Diablo 2. But I had stopped playing Diablo.
Not Blizzard didn't do that remaster. So that's part of that story as well. They've been dysfunctional for a while.
Oh, Blizzard didn't do that? Who did it?
Vicarious Visions did, and then they were shut down.
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then collapsed into Blizzard. It was a whole thing.
So that was good.
This is the stuff I know. You want more of this stuff? You come over to Virtual Legality. Yeah, they got Vicarious Visions make it. They cut it off. They add the leader of Vicarious Visions as the co-manager of Blizzard in order to cover their asses for what happened over the summer. And then she leaves almost immediately because they didn't wind up paying the two co-managers, one a man, one a woman, the same amount of money in the midst of a disparity in pay lawsuit. And then she makes it public and puts the emails out there. Activision Blizzard, regardless of how you feel about California's lawsuit, whether there's merit there, whether there's not, any of the other stories coming on, there's a lot of stuff to talk about there. however you feel about the actual substance there, they could not have done more poorly in messaging after it or handling anything about it. Every single step they took was seemingly wrong-footed. So they dug half their grave getting into what happened with the EEOC and the state of California. They dug 2 extra graves after everything happened.
That's hilarious to me because like what you're saying, no matter what you think about even the issue, much less the lawsuit, but the equal pay issue, you're like, oh, well, I believe in paying people based on merit and experience. If you've got an ongoing scandal and you're a company that big, the amount of pay disparity that you're making up is pennies. I mean, it's literally nothing when you're Blizzard to pay someone an extra even $100,000-$200,000 a year to match his salary. And I don't know what the disparity was, but they should be to the penny the same amount.
They essentially said that, well, here your current, we're going to pay you what you were earning at your current roles. For this new role, we'll reevaluate. I'm like, no, not in this context, Activision Blizzard. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
You name the same price immediately. You give them both a bump, whatever's the shortest one, you hit that number, and then you figure it out from there. But instead, what they did is they did that, and then those emails get leaked from someone on the receiving chain there. I have my doubts about who it was, but they get leaked, and there's all sorts of things. So, oh, you only brought me in as a token. You didn't give me any responsibility. You didn't set the prices the same way. It's like, see, you're verifying what people already thought of them, who were jumping the gun at the time, but also you just verified it. So I'm sitting there in virtual legality with a video like that saying, I don't know what to tell you. They're however you feel about it, they are horribly run, horribly.
Yeah, so, lots of disasters, and that was evident to the gaming community with the epic line of what? Don't you have phones? As they brought in all of these live streamers who are guys who make their bread playing at the top level, Diablo 2, Diablo 3. They're out there pumping these high-end, at the time, computer products, computer-based or console-based products that are on the cutting edge. And then they're like, don't you want our mobile game? It's like, no, these guys don't want a mobile game. But streaming mobile games is cancer.
Even if they don't, which is almost certainly accurate, there's still ways to have people that are there at your conference to root for you, right? This is already tribal. They're already brand fans. To go to them and say, look, we want to hit other markets. We want to expand our revenue. We want to make more money, to pour more money into the games that you love. There's ways to message these things that aren't condescending, sarcastic, and frankly bullshit to the people that are rooting for you. And Blizzard had like a series of those, because it was right after that you had the Hong Kong crisis, where Blizzard loses its damn mind and does everything wrong in response to cutting off a player of theirs for saying free Hong Kong. And that dovetails into everything that we see from Activision Blizzard after that.
Yeah, that was that Blitzchung?
Blitzchung, yeah.
Yeah, that was bad. That killed, because I was playing Diablo 3 at the time, and I was really enjoying their they didn't do they did like these seasons or whatever, and rotating buffs and cool different stuff. And I was enjoying Diablo 3 a lot and playing it, and that happened. And I immediately, I wasn't like, I want to boycott Blizzard. I went, I have no interest in playing.
I just sort of a taste for it. Yeah. I hear that. I hear that loud and clear. I think that might've been the first long form playlist that I did on my channel, which I felt bad about. I called it a Blizzard of Backlash, which it was. But then when we had all the Activision stuff happen, I said, I wish I had that title back, because it definitely applies to this particular situation. And that was a big deal, because at the same time the NBA was dealing with it. So it was all circling around itself, and really didn't get solved. The NBA didn't solve it. Blizzard didn't solve it. It just kind of, you hope it gets forgotten after time, but we don't forget. If virtual legality is for anything, we have archives of basically every scandal in the video gaming world in the last 3 years. So you want to go check out emails that have been deleted, tweets that are gone. You find the video. We got it. I actually had to do that for one of my most recent videos, to say, hey, I've been blocked by this person in the intervening time, but I got a screenshot. So let's talk about what he said to me, a year ago.
Absolutely. Okay. I want to read this Rumble rant because it's right on point
Okay.
with what we're talking about. Lieutenant Hobbit says, I play a mobile game where in almost 900 days, I've dumped a little shy of $6,000. One of the biggest players in the game has dumped almost 2 million in 2 to 3 years of playing. Like it's wild. But you know, to people who I guess doubt that or whatever, the ability to just pay for what you like, though, is something that, I mean, that's what people want, right? That's why a lot of people have these, they have Steam libraries. Like mine is too big and it's nowhere near what a lot of other people's are, right? But you go and you're just looking, you're like, how many do I have in my library right now? Let's see, 248 games, not very many.
I'm not opening mine.
Yeah.
It's something in the thousands.
Exactly. But you go and you're just like fishing for that thing.
Yeah.
And Steam is basically gamified gaming purchases in a lot of ways. And so you do it, you wait for that Steam sale to come out and you're like, oh baby, everything's going to be cheap. And you start dropping in and it's in a similar fashion. It's the feedback cycle that's just enough to keep you hooked for the next purchase. And you know, you could dump on mobile gamers for spending money, but they found their one thing that they like to spend money on. Whereas a lot of times I find that console and PC gamers will go out and do the same thing. They get the same feedback loop. They're just doing it on in a different environment. And they're not in that one particular IP. They're searching maybe for that one IP that they can really stick with.
Me personally, it's hard to imagine because variety and novelty are really high on my list of values. You know, I said I was playing Ghostwire Tokyo this week, and I'm really enjoying that because it's weird as hell. I mean, they're doing all sorts of wacky things in that game, and I really like that novelty. It's one of the reasons it's reacting so well with me. And just the concept of loving one thing, anything that I love to death, you know, sitting there and watching Lord of the Rings trilogy until I die, I can't imagine because I like the next new thing. So I think that's where I have a problem. But as I said before, if you're getting utility out of it, great. Who am I to judge? And if you have the money for it, fantastic. You know, there are people that'll spend $250,000 going to Disney World and doing everything. And all right, more power to them.
R.I.P. Branca.
but you know, I think what people worry about from our side of the perspective is that if everybody just starts aiming solely at the whales, then perhaps the quality of life goes down for the people that aren't whales. And, you know, from an envy standpoint that maybe can't ever be whales and can't get to that level, I certainly, you know, understand that as well. So
yeah,
I am sympathetic to the gamers that come out and say games as a service is bad, mobile stuff is bad, the Skinner boxes are bad, all this stuff. Because I think at some fundamental level, there's some rightness there. But I'm also, at heart, I'm an economist and, to be frank, a corporate transactions lawyer. So I say, they appear to be giving something to somebody that they value more than the cash in their pocket. So, you know, we have to start evaluating it on that score as well. Unfortunately, I am not the market, and the world does not revolve around my wants and desires. So sometimes the market speaks differently than what I want.
Have you not told people that you're a YouTuber, therefore the world does revolve around your wants and desires?
You know, I don't have that 300,000 subscriber base, Nick. So, you know, I'm not up there playing with the big dogs yet. Although my wife is still surprised that we cleared 50,000. She's really surprised that we cleared 500. She loves it when I tell the story where she says, who precisely is going to watch that? I said, I don't know. I'm going to have fun with it. We're going to put some info out there. We're going to see what we can do. And, you know, I'm lucky that, you know, we caught on a little bit, and lucky that I get to appear on places like Recato Law.
Oh yes. The prestigious.
Wow.
The prestigious. No, it's a weird world. And I was the same way. My channel was an accident. Cause I couldn't figure out how to upload a video to Facebook. That was literally the reason I started.
So you went through YouTube?
Yeah, I was like, well, I can upload to YouTube this thing because it was like an hour long, and I can do that, and then I can put it on. I put it on YouTube and link it to the Facebook group, and then a whole bunch of people watched it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Hey,
I
see,
guess this works.
I can point to two impetuses behind the channel. One of which I already said, which is a couple of deals fell through. The other was The Last Jedi, of all things. So I go to The Last Jedi. I write on the Hoeg law firm blog, which I was trying to do. I was kind of like 5 years late. I was trying to do to, set the market up, get some SEO from YouTube. And I decided to write, I think it's like a 7,000 word essay on The Last Jedi. And what happens there is that it goes moderately viral in a way that I'd never seen. It's still my most read piece that I've ever done. And I'm finding places on the internet that, as an old man now in internet terms, I had never heard of before. It finds its way to Reddit, which I'd never read. It found its way to Tumblr. Like a lot of Tumblr fans for this essay when this went out. And I said, well, that's really interesting.
I'm so sorry.
And this led me to, I had a number of comments. This is gonna tie back to what you were doing yesterday. I had a number of comments that said, you should check out this video. Echoes a lot of your sentiments from this YouTuber, but it goes by the name of Mauler. He's got a weird gas mask avatar. That never shows his face. And check it out. And I watched this thing, and I've been a Mauler fan ever since. And I said, I could make a video out of this essay. And I started practicing doing that kind of thing. And then when in that same year, I had the time to say, well, I know some of this editing stuff. I know some of this stuff to make virtual legality. That's how it happened is The Last Jedi. So yeah, I'm a Star Wars fan, at least pre-Disney. And that finding out what YouTube was doing, finding out that it was doing criticism and in-depth stuff, and it wasn't just cat videos and whatever, was part of that journey for me. And now, it's it's more than a third of my time, I think, at this point. And that's really crazy. Every day that I make a video and I'm in the process of it, I'm like, wow, sitting in law school, this is not what I saw. So it's really, really cool to be able to get information and education and hopefully entertainment out to so many people that are interested in learning this stuff. So I feel blessed there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sitting in law school, I had no idea, no plan for this at all. It was great. And I'm very happy that it happened this way. Let me hit a couple of the initial super chats that came in.
Absolutely.
And then we will, we need to do the dangerous thing, and we need to speculate on something that we will never have an answer to, most likely ever. And that's Dr. Disrespect.
Absolutely.
So, Cardero says, Nick, is it true that Wisconsin women make a loud snarling noise each time they bite into a hamburger, or urban legend? That's true. That's true. In the same way that Minnesota women do it, but only with a Juicy Lucy. When they've got a Juicy Lucy, they will snort, snarl, they'll sneer all at the same time. It's like, and then they'll take a big bite and there'll be molten cheese dripping off of their faces. It's disgusting. Midwest women are horrific, but they're great at the same time. So, yeah, no, that's a true thing. Next was Mandy Karavic says, sorry to miss the show, Nick. We were just sent home from work due to a reported active shooter threat at our sales staff. Oh. I'm on the phone with a lot of coworkers right now, so I'll try to catch Twitch. Howdy, Hoeg. Well, please prioritize not getting murdered over Twitch and YouTube. That is always more important. Although, if you do happen to find yourself face to face with the shooter and you don't have a gun, I will say that it is possible that the soothing sounds of Rekieta Law could placate the shooter long enough for you to make whatever move you need to make. So if you happen to be watching, like, just unplug your headphones and walk, with the phone up and the volume up. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Obviously.
I'm pretty sure that was the climactic conclusion of a Netflix season, if I'm recalling correctly. I think that's the end of the OA. Which everybody made fun of. It's not Rekieta Law, of course. I think they stop a school shooter with interpretive dance. Highly recommend checking out that scene. Highly recommend it. I'm not joking.
How can you not be joking about that? That's the most ridiculous
I'm not joking.
I've heard ever.
End of season one finale, school shooter. They stop him with interpretive dance. I'm not. You just chat, back me up on this. Somebody that watched the OA. Tell Nick I'm not joking.
Like Sam Neill soothing a dinosaur, but with a phone, like, shh, shh, shh. Rekieta Law, listen to him drunkenly rant at you. He's fine. You're fine.
Yeah, you're just so unnerved by the Ricada stream or the interpretive dance that you just drop everything.
Oh my gosh, that's wild. For those in the chat who don't know, I realize I used a Midwesternism that may not be familiar. A Juicy Lucy is a hamburger that is stuffed in the middle with a bunch of cheese and sometimes other stuff. But it started with just cheddar cheese. So they would take some really cold cheese in blocks or whatever, and they would put it in the middle. Not like you can go to the grocery store and get like pepper jack or whatever cheese inside, just some ground beef patties or whatever. No, like they would put a solid thing of cheese and then put the patty around it and cook it, and it would melt the cheese as it cooked the burger in the middle. So when you bite into it, you're biting into scorching hot magma cheese. But they're really good. They're really good. And then they started doing stuff like, you know what we could put in there is bacon or peanut butter with the cheese. Is weird. They get weird combinations, but some bacon and jalapenos in with your cheese. Oh my God, they're great. So that's that. Mandy, though, I hope everything works out okay for you.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you're safe, but really hope everything's okay with your coworkers and fellow colleagues. Noble Demon Tim says, pardon my dyslexia, but think the Knicks, the Knicks, Miami Heat lost to the New York Knicks and Pittsburgh Penguins lost to the New York Rangers. So glad I didn't bet. There you go. That's the world of sports. I almost got ratioed today on Twitter because like late last night, I was looking on Twitter and I saw a promoted tweet from like the NBA, and it was guys and they're wearing leggings under their shorts, basketball players.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And I was like, I hadn't seen it because I don't watch basketball. And I was like, why are men wearing leggings? And then a bunch of people made fun of me. I was like, oh, okay. I can't wear compression leggings because I'd get way too hot. I would melt, and I'm allergic to heat. It'd be a disaster.
Yeah, I was under the impression some of them do it either because it does this or they believe it does this for their muscles. Something good for actually being out there.
Well, everybody,
could be fashion.
All of the scientists on Twitter told me definitively it increases performance.
Well, I can't answer that. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, I'm not. Are you a biologist?
I'm not that either. Not that either. I can't answer those questions, Nick.
I was avoiding that topic, but we could
that
dip
was
our
an
toes
oblique
into
reference.
there.
Nobody knows what that's about.
No one. It's a weird thing that's very obscure. Rawset says, I demand you try your new premier alcohol selection. Rawset, not tonight, although I have used a little bit of the bourbon because I cooked yesterday some ribeye steaks for me and Lady Rackets. And then I used the bourbon to deglaze the cast iron pan. And then I added a little beef broth and a whole lot of heavy cream and made a sauce to dump over the rice and steaks. I also used mushrooms and shallots. It was really good. And the bourbon flavor actually, and I knew this about the particular liquor you sent, that the bourbon flavor would be really, really heavy and prominent in it. And it was in the sauce as well. But what I have a plan for a live stream coming up where we utilize gamification for me to make extra income. And that is where I get the audience to choose what military special liquor to drink, because I now have vodka, bourbon, and gin. So we're going to do that really, really soon. And I will probably die afterwards, but it'll be worth it. Nix Hex says, speaking of speed running, follow Nix_Hex on Twitch with the underscore to watch a boomer learn to speed run Super Metroid. I got a personal best time today by 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Nice. So I'm just chilling with Rackets and Hoeg. Awesome, man. But wait, you said by 2 minutes and 31 seconds. So that could be like, well, the first run through of Super Metroid took you 12 hours. And this is 12 hours minus 2 minutes and 31 seconds.
Gains are gains, Nick. Hey, and you picked a good game to choose, I think. So you improve your time by 2 minutes. I'm giving credit.
Jake, no, that didn't ruin my cast iron. Why would Why would making a sauce in your cast iron ruin the cast iron? You have to clean it out right away. You can't like leave liquids in cast iron, but you just clean them out. It's not a big deal. Yeah, but you're right. Gains are gains. And you're probably beating Super Metroid faster than me, who's never beaten Super Metroid.
I can't say that, but I bet you're doing faster than me.
Did you ever beat Metroid on Game Boy?
Which one?
I don't know, the first one. I didn't know there were more.
Well, Fusion is the one that I usually think of the most as Game Boy.
We're talking green and paler green Game Boy, like the original?
No, Fusion is Game Boy Advance. Is there a Metroid on the Game Boy original?
I'm pretty sure there was.
Okay.
Because I remember.
I do not claim to know the entire library of Game Boy games.
I remember. Is that Metroid 2: Return of Samus was on Game Boy. Yeah, I played that one.
Oh,
that's because you can't see because it's the Game Boy.
I mean, nobody remembers this stuff, but yeah, you used to have to try to like frame it under whatever the light source was, and then also try to play it. So
you had that light on the screen.
You
could little bulb.
You could do that. You could have it. It was never perfect because you're either watching like a 3/4 image of the screen, or you've got a light bulb in the middle of the main action. So I love my Game Boy dearly, but we've made improvements since then.
Dude, do you remember like how the thing that gets me these days? So I got a new Samsung tablet, the S8 Ultra or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can like leave as long as if you're not doing something with it, you can leave it forever. The battery lasts for a long time. If it's just kind of passively on, you open it a couple times. But even if you're doing something heavy on it, the battery on these phones and devices is getting so good. And I remember the Game Boy, I mean, you were burning AA's like crazy. And my first Discman, right? I had a Sony Discman with like 3 seconds of shock protection. And that's where, because if you bounced the Discman, it would skip all over the place until someone figured out how to basically buffer a song. And that's all the shock protection was, is it buffered ahead. And the Discman had 3 seconds. And I remember opening that up, and it was like your average play time on 2 AA's is going to be 6 hours.
I believe
it. And that was good. It's like, yeah, that's pretty good. That's a lot of time out of batteries. I was killing batteries because I had a Discman in my pocket at school, and I would walk, because I wore big pants because I was a stupid idiot. But I would walk around with just headphones on all day, and you just burn batteries.
Oh, I had a Game Gear. I don't know if you remember that one. That was Sega's answer. That was burning batteries. Like nobody's I don't even know how many it used to start out with, and then it would give you like 2.5, 3 hours of tiny color Sonic the Hedgehog.
And bright. That screen, well, when you compared it with the Game Boy, the Game Gear screen was so freaking bright. And I mean, that had to just be chewing it up.
It was bad. It was bad. I don't know if it was quite as bad as the TurboGrafx portable, but we're going deep. We're making deep cuts into video gaming history.
Yeah. William Smith says, Hoeg Law. I remember when you were a sponsor for EZA.
Yes.
They do great work, but unfortunately I found them hard to watch ever since their podcast became Zoom calls and their producer became a she. Do you keep up with them?
Yeah, no, definitely I do. No, I think the Easy Allies do a lot of good work. Yeah, I mean they were hit by the pandemic as much as anybody. California pretty strict in a lot of places. And so when they went to Zoom calls, I think the product suffered. There's no question when you're talking about having interactions like they do live. It's very hard to blame them for that, especially where they live. I worry about them. I don't know if you saw, and I'll try to keep this short, but Brandon Jones, who is the head of game trailers, who was the head of Easy Allies, he announced he's retiring from gaming entirely this last week. And that's after Kyle Bossman, who was one of their other popular figures, left either a year or 2 years ago. So I worry about them. Yeah, I supported them for 3 years because I really liked what they were doing. But I'm hopeful. But it's so hard to keep this going, and then you lose 2 of your big figures out of 9. something like catching lightning in a bottle, running one of these channels, being as good at growth as somebody like Nick is. And these are massive shocks to the system. And regardless of whether it's Easy Allies, who I think does good work, or anybody else, those are hard to weather. Whether you're making, a tech company or widgets or streams online. So
it's why key person insurance actually, has been around forever, long before video games or any of this stuff that we're talking about, electronic entertainment. You had key figure insurance protection, because if a big part of your brand is a personality, like if Tesla loses Elon Musk, if he dies in like a botched Rocket X or whatever, is it Rocket X? No, that's the Amazon one.
SpaceX, right?
SpaceX. Yeah. If he dies in a SpaceX launch, like he's standing under the rocket thruster or whatever,
you're too close, Elon.
He's like, no, trust me, I'll be fine. I've developed a shield. No, you didn't. That was your dream. If he gets torched by a rocket launch, Tesla is in dire straits. Like that.
There's like 3 companies that are in terrible straits. Can you imagine what the insurance premium on him is?
It's got to be infinity dollars. But yeah, this idea of that, and I was thinking, because I was thinking about YouTube channels and how they grow in personnel as they grow in size. Because like right now I have an editor, but I'm probably going to be adding people as things go. And I know there's a lot of other channels that do this. And I talked to Eric July the other day, and he has people that do different things, but these channels become something more than their creator, but their creator is so integrally tied to the success of the channel that when you have employees, if you get to that point where you have beyond contractors, but actual employees who are relying on this as an income. And I'm talking about when you get to like levels like that Matt Pat, or those engineering shows that have 40 million
or like
views,
an Artesian Builds, that kind of thing. Yeah,
right. We're gonna talk about them. But when you get there, and you might lose, like if you lose someone in a car accident or whatever, there are people who with real impact, and the brand can either survive the death of that person sometimes, but a lot of times it won't. And so you have this insurance policy that comes in. It's like, well, we're going to pay these people out basically a severance so they can continue on. And yeah, like thinking about that with channels is kind of weird, because it's a new business model that are so personality dependent. New within the past.
I mean, It is. So yeah. No. So yeah. Long story short, I still love Easy Allies. But Brandon was one of my favorite voices. Kyle was one of my favorite voices. And that's hard to weather long term.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tina says I have 619 games on Steam, but I haven't really bought many games in the past 5 years. A lot of the games now are so woke that I'm not interested. And since I'm getting older, I just stick to playing 1 to 2 games for a while. Yeah, well, for me, buying games on Steam is a matter of like throwing a dart and hoping I hit a bullseye. Like I bought Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. I was super excited for it.
The new one?
Yeah, and I thought I played it for a couple hours and I was like, this is trash. Like it isn't fun. And Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 was really good. Like
for those who don't know, Dark Alliance 2 being way before the Dark Alliance he just mentioned.
Yes. Yeah. Dark Alliance 2 was back in like original Xbox and PlayStation days, I think, or maybe Xbox 360 and PS2. I don't remember, but like it was fun and action packed. It was an action RPG, and they limited the D&D choices appropriately to these characters, and it was a blast to play. I didn't play a lot of Dark Alliance 1, but it's more of like a Diablo style game, which is really good. And then this one came out and I'm like, God, I can't get into enjoying it. It's not very fun for me.
It's not great.
Yeah. But yeah. Wait, so you mentioned this guy's retiring from gaming.
Yeah. Do you know Brandon Jones?
No idea.
So if you've ever watched game trailers reviews before they were kind of
not really
gobbled up or anything like that, he's the voice, and he was the original guy with the idea to essentially monetize the trailers that were marketing video games through a separate channel. And that proved to be very, very lucrative. They wind up selling to CBS. CBS doesn't know what to do with them. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on with that. It's actually Viacom at the time. But then they all get fired because they don't know what their bosses don't know what it is that makes them popular. And they were one of the biggest, if not the biggest, successful Patreons when that happens in, I want to say either 2015 or 2016. And then they go and jump out to immediate success, tens of $1,000s a month. And that was, I think maybe Kind of Funny was before them. But that was part of that story, that narrative of going out. And because they're so personality driven, we've actually seen people deliberately do it instead of getting fired now, and saying, hey, I can make money by asking people to pay for my personality and the content that I'm making. But that was a really good success story. And one of the things when Hoeg Law starts in 2016 that I'm looking for is unusual ways to market, because I don't want to be a law firm that is just my big law self cheaper with a lot less personnel. Now, we don't have to pay for overhead in Chicago, and we don't have to pay for a 45-person collections billing department. Thank God. But, I didn't want to just be like, it's that, because I'm still me as a human being, but smaller. I wanted to market in some unusual ways. And Easy Allies, one of the things they had was a tier that allowed you to essentially have an ad that ran in their podcast, which was doing 30, 40, 50,000 an episode. And I said, okay, let's do that. And that wound up being something I did for 3 years. And for another impetus behind the channel, that was something that became Kyle asking me legal questions about, at the time, Microsoft and purchases by EA of Respawn and fan creations and all this stuff that they were interested in. And that became a segment on their show called Help Us Out Hoeg. And then, that's another area where all this stuff, I say that there's, reasons for the channel. There's like 17 that went in all at once. And that was one of the reasons as well, is that got very positive feedback during those kind of times. I said, well, all right, I could use my voice instead of Brandon's, and we could see where it goes. But no, they'll always have a very special place in my heart, because Virtual Legality sincerely doesn't exist without their feedback. Isla over there helped me with microphone setup and getting videos set up and that kind of thing. So to a man and woman, they treated me exactly as they project out onto their screens, which I have to tell folks is not the way every interaction goes with people that have a very pleasant persona or otherwise are friendly on stream. I'm great with Nick. This is not subtweeting at Nick. Nick's great. But there are people that project things that are a little bit nasty if you're not having a live number in the top left corner. And that's not the Easy Allies. So I will always have a tremendous amount of respect for them. And yeah, he's retiring from gaming entirely. He said, I'm getting out of Easy Allies and I'm not going to do gaming anymore. Yeah, that was, to be honest, that was a blow. That was one of those that hit me hard. And it's like, well, all right, let's see what they can do.
I was just, it was funny because you said he's retiring from video gaming. I'm like, does that mean like getting a job? Like, I don't know.
I think he did all right for himself. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the finances of Mr. Jones, but he has an actual house in Los Angeles, which I think even if you had to liquidate it, you could probably live the rest of your life on. So
no, it's just like the thought of it. It's like, okay, when I retire from like work, I go do leisure. So when you retire from leisure, do you go do work? Like, even if you don't have to, it's like, well, I can't do video games anymore. So now I guess I'm going to go.
But you know as well as I do, this isn't as nearly as snappy or as easy going to actually put up every day.
Oh, no.
It might otherwise appear. So, I don't begrudge him it. He's like 42 or 43 or something. So, we'll see. But I hope the best for them. Is the very short answer to the very long answer to that question.
Well, I was yelling at my kids the other day because they were being jerks to each other. Like they're screaming at each other. So here's my son plays in a Minecraft server with some friends, and my daughter, who's significantly younger than him, she's 5 years younger than him, wanted to join the server, and they let her in. They let her in to play, and my son killed her chicken. And he claims it was an accident, right? Like but she's like, it wasn't an accident. Why'd you charge the bow again? So she went and killed his cat.
Things escalating.
Right. And he's had this cat apparently since he joined the server. That was one of the first things he got. And cats are apparently very hard to find. I don't know in Minecraft in general, but on this server, cats are hard to get. So she killed his cats. They're screaming at each other because he killed her chicken. She killed his cat. He's pissed off and she's pissed off. And I'm like griping at them because they're sitting around playing Minecraft rather than doing something else at all. And the worst part is that now they're fighting over this.
Yeah.
And I was telling them, I was like, I know they all want YouTube channels and stuff. They're like, oh, I want a YouTube channel. And I keep telling, I'm like, the odds of succeeding on YouTube are so low that for every person who makes it, there's 10 to 100,000 people who never will. And you have to understand that you are in the 10 to 100,000 people until you aren't.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to just roll into this. I said, I got really lucky, but then with my YouTube channel, I have worked harder on this thing than anything in my entire life. Grind and work and
it
work.
Is so
and
very
work.
grindy. And I think people don't quite realize that if you don't actually love it at a fundamental level, like I really like making virtual legality episodes. And so I see something in the news and somebody asks me a question. I said, I can make something great on that. I really, really love it. And you find the time and you add it on to the beginning or the end or the middle of your workday that you're already doing for the law firm or whatever else. If you don't love it, you're not going to make it. I mean, if you look at my channel, I got 57,000 subscribers. I'm very, very proud of. I'm happy with the growth. I've uploaded 730 videos in just a little over 3 years. We didn't catch the algorithm. We didn't get a lightning moment. You never know. Hey, everybody subscribes now from watching this. Hey, that's a big bump to the channel. Come on over. But we've been grinding the entire time. Yep. And if you cared about the monetization, if you cared about it and you looked at, what I bill for my legal advice and those kinds of things, for the longest time, still today, it's the stupidest ROI you've ever engaged in. You don't do this to go get millionaire status and become PewDiePie, because it's very unlikely to happen, period. You do it because, in my instance, I really like getting the information out there. And I think the gaming industry can benefit from knowing how businesses work a little bit more than they seem to be reporting on in general. And I that's important to me. And I think about it so much because there's so many days, especially early on, 500 subscribers, whatever, where you're like, this is so stupid, because you're spending the exact amount of time and hopefully you're streamlining it as you go along. But it's like, this is so stupid, but I like it. And I'm having good interactions and I'm setting up a community and I'm having this fun, this interaction. But you can't be like, oh, I'm going to go be ninja and we're all going to be millionaires. It's going to be fantastic. Cause maybe you will, but it's really, really unlikely.
But you won't. And it's the same with, it's really the same with every industry, right? Like the salesman figures, it's 2%. 2% of people succeed as salesmen. The other 98% are worthless garbage as far as it goes. Like you might be able to be in the 98% and squeak out a living and do something. You'll probably hate it though, because you're not built to walk in and make $2 million a year selling cars or dishwashers or whatever. But the people who do, I mean, they crush it and they do really, really well. It's probably not you. Same with sports, same with everything else. YouTube is just every other industry in that respect. And it's, but I think the nature of how the performative aspect of YouTube presents to the audience, and
so
especially to kids, like they only see the end product. So like, they watch the worst content. They watch these Minecraft videos and stuff that are aimed at kids. And it's like, how much, like when you do it, how much editing goes into these things and how many hours of footage these unfunny people had to film to get their 12 jokes in. And it's like, man, these people are dumping time and effort into this.
That's very true. I'm always amused by the ones that are cut to within an inch of their lives, where you just see them bouncing around between sentences. I'm like, I wonder how many script takes that took exactly. But hey, you're making it. What can I say?
And they do it. They get down to a good formula. But then somebody sees once a week, or maybe a couple times a week, these people put up a 15-minute video, and it's like, no, that's like 40, 50 hours of work goes into some of these things when you get down to it. And it's wild. And they have teams of people cutting them, editing them, promoting them, sharing them around on every service. And it's like, yeah, if you don't know what's going on, you think, oh yeah, I can just make 10-minute videos and 10 minutes a week and make a living. Nope.
Well, I think I was reading that it was the American kid's dream job now. It's supplanted astronaut and those kinds of things. And so it's interesting, because my wife was so embarrassed when she had to tell people he's doing a YouTube video or whatever. And now she's not, but it's really amusing to see that industry come up, especially, lawyers and talking about professional things, not just lawyers, but professional items on YouTube. I think it's a good for the public, but it sure is a weird line of work that we have proceeded down, Nick.
It is. Such Drexar says, Hoeg, please look into the Acerthorn situation. Sidoff has a video on him. He's been abusing DMCA and using out of context clips of your stuff to say he's justified in weaponizing multiple lawsuits for millions against us.
So I've heard. Yeah. So for the most part,
I don't do IP law, Hoeg law is now being weaponized against the masses.
So for the most part, I will say this. I think I've said this philosophy before in virtual legality and elsewhere. I do, even though I cover some of these topics from time to time, I do try to stay out of direct on YouTube drama, violence. And yeah, I have considered the reports that I'm getting is that he's taking clips from Hoeg law stuff that are clearly, it doesn't appear to be applicable in the way that I haven't looked at any of the Acerthorn stuff. But it's a fine line, because I really don't want to over dramatize the channel, and that's hard. I will talk about some of those things, one, because they're popular. I mean, they really are. You hit on a drama on YouTube. It's the reason why you see it so often. The algorithm really does love it. But two, because I think it kind of lowers the, not even just professionality, but like the way you think about what we're talking about at a fairly neutral level. I'm the one that sells the Reasonable Minds Can Differ shirts. That said, you use my stuff, I got to take a second look. So that's on my list. Unfortunately, video game companies have been crazy for about 2 straight weeks and have things that have topped that. But I'm still unlikely to talk a lot about it, but we'll see. I have to do some more research on it.
Yeah, I think you should go after that guy. You should bury him. Just destroy Acerthorn.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of this person.
Yeah, no, I think he's a very small YouTuber and a fan of the channel. I mean, he's been in my comments since, I don't know, a couple of years now.
But now you got to put him in his place. Just destroy him. Just wreck his entire life.
Yeah, I like this. You're like a cartoon devil on the shoulder. It's pretty good.
Go get him.
Yes.
Startup Lab says, seems law tubers lean right based on data, law, and analysis. Where's the lefty libs lawyers? Spoiler alert, when you don't have fast fact-based analysis, you stick to 120 character Twitter cesspool. Bring on a lefty lib lawyer. No, there are plenty.
I mean, would legal come on here? I mean,
legal
chat with legal. I mean, I've been on a bunch of his videos. I don't know.
I don't know if he'd come on here or not. It never occurred to me to ask, because I'm not, like, I don't mean to be, I'm just not super interested in his impressions. And it feels like if I had him on, it would be a view farm or whatever. Like, I'd be trying to tap into the personality a little bit more, but
yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of his takes and style from the whole thing. Like, he does it right. He does it right.
I disagree with him very often. I will say this in his defense. For those that don't know, I mean, Legal, I believe is still the biggest lawyer on YouTube. I was going to say law tuber. As just
might be beaten by lockpicking lawyer.
Is that right?
That guy's channel is insane. Here, I'll try and pull up a comparison.
Yeah, look at those numbers. But generally approaches to things from a left political perspective. And when the COPPA controversy was happening with YouTube, and I was the one covering it the most, he wound up doing a commentary on it, and I want to give him credit because I did a video that was essentially Legal is wrong on COPPA. And I went through his video and I talked about it, and he essentially came into the comments and then invited me to correct him in his follow-up. That is deserving of appreciation because there are a ton of people and there are a ton of lawyers that wouldn't go for that kind of thing in that direction. So, I think he gets a fair amount wrong. In fact, I think the last time I was on here with you, Nick, late night, was us going piece by piece through a legal video.
Yep.
But believe me when I say there's certainly many political perspectives presented, and frankly, I keep politics as far away from my videos as I can on a regular basis. So my persuasions in the dark of the voting booth, might well surprise you. So I don't know that you want to make assumptions on everybody in LawTube just based on the fact that we hang out together. I am very open to talking with Legal and with Nick and with everybody else, as I think a lot of people are. Conversation is a good thing.
The reason I don't like Legal isn't his politics.
Yeah.
It's because he does everything the way he does his YouTube channel the way I expect a lawyer to do a YouTube channel, and that in and of itself makes me annoyed.
Hey, in front of the library books and like with the suit, I totally get you. It's so funny. When I started appearing on camera first, people were like, so like a hoodie and a hat, huh? I was like, look, I have very specific rules here. I have uniforms for everything that I do. When I appear on camera, I have basically 2 looks. Hoodie and hat is the easiest. I know where I put them, and that gets me on camera faster. This is more Hoeg content. But there are some people like, you don't look like a lawyer. I'm like, hey, lawyers are human beings. We just do stuff. So
yeah,
that's part of virtual reality as well. We're people. I have thoughts on The Last Jedi. Hey,
my favorite was always, you're drinking in public as a lawyer. And I was like,
is it illegal?
Have you met lawyers? A lot of them have drinking problems.
I'm separate. I'm a teetotaler of the crew. I was at my firm too. So, hey, drink away.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. You can never talk about your vices, because if you say, well, I don't think I have a problem, everybody will go, well, nobody thinks they have a problem. So, but that being said, what I will say is I know that the amount I drink pales in comparison to my law school classmates, because I used to go to the bar with them, and I like the lawyers drinking is if you don't think lawyers drink, I would suggest that you've met very few of them, but a lot of them do.
Lawyers are very high on all those vice lists, including but not limited to suicide. Lawyering is you're in constant conflict. You're working long hours and often in things that you don't want to be working on at all. So it's an interesting profession. There's a lot of good you can do, but there's a lot of people that get sucked into that. No question.
Oh yeah. Speaking of top shelf grifters who may also consume alcohol, the court, and anybody on this channel knows I speak in love, as a top shelf grifter myself. The Quartering says, take tops off, bros. Oh, okay. And then he also says, a liberal lawyer is like a priest that denies the cream filling. Don't trust him. Damn. Goodness. Jeremy coming in hot.
You're going to have a lot of trouble finding a big law lawyer. That's one of the interesting aspects of that.
Yeah. It's interesting in the industry. That's what's interesting about YouTube lawyers to me, is that I wouldn't say that. I think our positions are very nuanced. Usually, they get, and I think we try to blunt the nuance a lot of times, because it's easier than to really delve into a lot of issues in full on ways. Cause it just doesn't always translate to a video. Because legal problems are so fact specific and situational that you can't just broad brush everything. And you may end up being hired by someone who disagrees with you politically and have to delve into that anyway.
Sure.
But it does seem to trend that a lot in our community lean right on a lot of issues that would surprise people generally. Because if you're not in the YouTube world and you're encountering lawyers in the wild, the left prevalence is astronomical, in my opinion.
It's enormous. I mean, you can see that in law schools. You can
Yeah.
see that in the ABA. I would say that that's the standard. In a certain respect, legals of the world notwithstanding, you find yourself on YouTube or running a small law firm, in all likelihood, because you've rejected certain aspects of, what legal lawyering at a standard white soul law firm has become. And so, Hoeg Law exists because a partner at one of my firms essentially pulled me aside and said, you're either a firm man or a family man. I said, well, okay. And my exit plan started that day. And I told my mentor that. I said, look, I'm done. I'm going to plan this out. It's probably going to take a year. It did. It was like a year and a half. But that you can't actually put me in a room and sound like a freaking badly written Disney movie and have me not react to that kind of thing. I mean, that was my complete and total rejection of what that was, and said, I'm going to go do things for myself. And it's worked out.
I would have significant trouble, I think, in a big law environment, like just in general. My personality, I'm just me.
I had a meeting that said I smiled too much. People saw me smiling too much. And the basic thesis was I wasn't taking the responsibility of the profession seriously enough. I said, we don't have clients here, and I would prefer not to live a grimdark existence. So I'm going to roll my Star Wars robots around occasionally and treat the secretaries with respect. But it's lawyering. I don't want to dissuade anybody of it, because you can do good work. You can have a good career. But you got to find your niche. You got to find your place. And there's a lot of people doing it wrong.
Yeah. Oh, and if someone told me not to smile, I mean, that's like put me in a bear trap. I'm done, because that's how I process heavy things, dark things, is I try and laugh through them and smile through them. That's how I do it. And so if you're like, oh, well, you're not taking it seriously, it's like, no, I actually probably am. This might be me being more serious than you think, because I'm addressing an issue that's a little bit tougher. A couple more of these, and then we need to talk Dr. Disrespect.
Well, we can talk about some subjects. This is great.
Selrin says, I'm a video editor on the D&D logs. We make highly edited and scripted 10 videos, I think 10-minute videos. It takes 3 to 4 hours to research and write a script, 2 hours set up with art assets, and 6 to 8 hours to edit it for a 15-minute video. I don't know about voice work. Yeah,
I believe it. And I think you're zipping at that pace, honestly. I think you're good and efficient.
That's probably at a clip that is an oiled machine at that point. You're really got things into a groove. Bob BQ says, hey, Nick, got a similar IP issue. Been told to reach out. Sent you a DM on Twitter. Okay, Bob BQ, I'll look for it, and we'll see if I can offer you any sort of advice or help. Mo Zamboni says, this is 100% for Hoeg Law. He was my portal to LawTube. God, I hate LawTube as a title, but it works.
It's so you're never getting rid of it. It's straight and to the point.
Yeah. I've said it before. I fell into Hoeg via the Dr. Disrespect drama, and it led me to Viva Barnes and eventually the cesspool that is Mr. Ricada. Love you all. Oh, thank you. That's the nicest anybody's ever called me, a cesspool. And I have experiences that run the gamut on that one. Kretosis says, on the Acerthorn subject, he has a crazy 2-hour-long video claiming to be an expert in copyright, in which he gets nearly everything wrong. He has DMCA and / suing someone for showing his channel art in a video talking about him. Well,
facts and circumstances from where we're sitting, but yeah, it doesn't sound great.
It's going to be an expensive lawsuit. If you run through it, no matter what, that's going to be an expensive lawsuit. Copyright lawsuits are federal, and they get pricey quick. Sargon versus Aquila was a cheap copyright lawsuit, and he got awarded what, 40 grand in fees. I think that was inexpensive. Those things can quickly tick up into the 6 figures. So, Startup Lab says, I'm a recovering big law lawyer. The great experience, but it's like a cult. I'm a better lawyer for being trained by the best, but whoa, glad I escaped before drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah, if you want to be a big law lawyer, I mean, you can do it, make a lot of money, and be very successful. But the lawyer who said you're either a firm man or a family man, he was at least giving it to you straight.
He was.
Like in big law, if you want to really succeed, you're in a law firm with 250, 300, 500 other lawyers. If you want to stand out, you're going to be pulling 80, 100-hour weeks. A lot of times you're going to be the guy who says yes to everything, which means getting on a plane, going across the country to depose someone, being away from your family for a little while. Like you're going to be that guy the same way you would be climbing any other corporate ladder structure in larger enterprises. Is you're going to have to put in the work, and if you do it, you'll make a ton of money. But you're gonna work at it, which it seems to be a repeating concept of life. Is if you want to make a ton of money, if you want to do it, you're going to work really hard, and you're going to give up in certain places. And you know what? So I watched Cory Booker's questioning of Ketanji Jackson from day one today, and while I think Cory Booker is a total clown and all of that stuff, one of the things that Ketanji Jackson responded to his talk with was this idea that she'd made some statement how, she looks back on her performance as a mother and she sees some things that she would have wished she could have done better. But at the same time, you're not going to get to the Supreme Court of the United States by being a perfect mother who's always there all the time, because you're going to have to miss things. You're going to have days where you're doing your work and you're writing opinions, and you're going to have times where you have to go do something else, and you don't become connected enough to be a Supreme Court nominee without doing some of that in networking and rubbing the right elbows as well. Like that's just part of it. But I actually appreciated that answer from her because it was honest. And it's like, you're talking top level of judges here. You're going to miss some stuff. You're not going to be taking days off all the time. And there's one more, potentially criminal, says nobody wants to hear from Legal Queeful and how my FOIA will bring down Drumpf. Whatever anyone thinks about legal, that the FOIA thing was I think is one of the things that I've tried to avoid as a lawyer on YouTube, is getting sucked into doing I'm going to litigate this thing now in front of the world, because I think that's a mess. I think that's a mess. Now it's if someone sues you or something, that's one thing, but you're like, I'm going to go do that. And there's a guy who his channel was growing around the same time mine was early on. His name was Leonid, I think. He was down in Florida. He was an IP lawyer, and he got wrapped up in something like that. He was going to do something, and what was that guy? What was that channel's name? Does anybody remember the guy? He was super nice. YouTuber Law. Yeah, that was his name. YouTuber Law. That guy, he was great. I really liked him. And I would send people over, and I go in his chat a lot, but he got wrapped up in doing Leor Lesser. He got wrapped up in doing some litigation he's like, I'm going to do this thing. And it was like, no, buddy, don't do that. Don't try to litigate in real life, because litigation doesn't always go as you plan. And there's no way to plan litigation to go correctly. And so for it's a mess. It's a mess. But I really like Leor. I hope he's doing well. Yeah, he was suing Patreon or something like that. Yeah. It was one of those things. Like, I'm going to look into a class action against this company for this censorship stuff. And it was cool. And then he was working on it, and then his channel just vanished. I assume he got busy in real life and couldn't keep up. But yeah, I wonder how that guy's doing. Maybe next time I'm in Florida, I'll go visit him. Colin Shaw Indie Game says, Nick, you're my first law tuber from the Kyle trial. Though I had seen Legal in passing, I didn't realize it was a thing till you, but I don't know, might be simping for Hoeg, as video games law is where my favorite rumors lie. Yeah, definitely. If that's like this dude, you have videos. I love it. This is the average interaction I see from you on Twitter. someone's like, man, one of these lawyers should cover this. And you've already responded with a video to
I
a
do
subject
that
that
sometimes. Yeah. Well, you talk about that editing process. In general, not every day, I'm blessed with being able to go and do a talk on straight up without too much editing. That was really key to me working with the firm, is getting farm to table, as I call it, within some kind of reasonable amount of hours, which does mean that my videos can go up really, really, really quickly sometimes if I'm on my game. And yeah, then you get to respond to, man, I wish we had more of this, and then just throwing the video up in there.
Yeah, it's just funny because it's like you do that, but like the speed at which you have some of these things out, like an issue is just broken, you're like, yeah, I got a video up on that. It's like, oh my God, this guy is all over it. If you're into that sort of stuff, you know what I need to do? I've got to tag you in the description of the video here so that people can easily go get to your channel.
Tag it. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's virtual legality. We're having fun doing that. Talking about games and software and business and law. And the gaming industry has no shortage of stories.
It's still in the it's in the chat now, or it's in the description now, right in the top line. You'll see Hoeg Law is highlighted. If you click on that, it'll take you, I think, in a new window even, over to his channel. You can click subscribe. If you're into video game law, like we're about to talk about, then you need to check him out. He's the guy. Like, he's the guy on this stuff. And you know, I can chime in on some things, but Richard here is actually,
yeah, we have fun over there.
Yeah. Okay, and there's one other one to read. I keep saying that.
I was gonna say, what's it like to get 6 million super chats, Nick? This is
it's kind of distracting sometimes, but it's welcome and wonderful. It helps a lot. It helps a lot sometimes when it's like, man, I have a couple topics, but I don't know if they'll fill out the show. And then the chat always brings something to talk about.
Right now, we're not on schedule to get to any topics. So keep it up, super chat. Let's see if we can do it.
Cypher says, in Mark Richards' voice, Your Honor, the evidence will show that Scott is in love with his beautiful wife, Marley. Also by Ethereum, Your Honor. So there you go. That's for Cypher. Thank you. Thank you for sending that. Okay. Let's get to the first subject. Let's get to Dr. Disrespect, because this was a subject that was so big. And I mean, like, I did a Dr. Disrespect video that did really well because people were interested in it. I know you've done a couple videos on Dr. Disrespect.
My most watched video is the original breaking Dr. Disrespect story. It's the only video on virtual legality that's over 250,000.
Yeah. And it's a huge topic because he's a huge channel and everybody's looking at this going, what the hell happened? And then we had this long period, like a year and a half.
Yeah, it's, if I remember correctly, I think the Dr. Disrespect story breaks in the middle of 2020, right?
Gosh, I think so. It was,
yeah. So I think he's the middle of 2020, and then we get what we get this month or last month.
Right. And so what we had nothing for a long time, and then there were some little blips. Doc came out and he's like, yeah. That's why we're bringing. I was
gonna say, you can only keep a streamer completely quiet so much,
right?
So yeah, little comments, yeah.
And he finally drops someone and he said, I think the quote was something along the lines of, which is why we're suing him for a fucking lot of money or something like that. And you can tell, like, you could see it and hear it, like how badly Twitch had burned him on that. It came through when he talked about it. And so then I'm like, yes, I can't wait for a Dr. Disrespect lawsuit. And then we got the message, last week or 2 weeks ago at most, something like that. And it's like this it's like a thank you note. And it just says, I've resolved my dispute with Twitch. Neither party admits any wrongdoing.
That's right.
And then Twitch gave the exact, that, like, they were questioned by some gaming outlet, and they gave the exact same response. We've resolved our issue with Dr. Disrespect. Neither party admits to any wrongdoing. And
that's an agreed upon stipulated response right there.
Yeah. And he's still banned from Twitch, and he's still banned enough that GM Hikaru, the chess streamer, chess grandmaster who does chess streams and chess commentary. He watched a live stream where Dr. Disrespect was playing a different streamer. So Doc wasn't on his show. He was watching and reacting to it. And Twitch says that that's a violation of their terms of service because he's banned, and you can't feature a banned streamer, even if feature doesn't necessarily mean that they're on the show.
You can't spotlight them, I believe, is how Twitch has essentially interpreted that. The really interesting thing to me on that is when you see this kind of thing happen after a big section of silence, you know they're in arbitration. We know that the arbitration was very likely to have roughly the same terms that Twitch had asked for in its general terms of service. The reason we don't know for sure of that is because Dr. Disrespect had an exclusive contract. So it was a fully negotiated separate document, but we know Twitch's preferences, and it's hard to believe that Dr. Disrespect's team would have had strong opinions when they're signing that contract on that. So they're in clandestine, confidential arbitration. They pop out with what looks like a settlement. The biggest question for me with what we've seen now with the bans that you talk about is he allowed to play now in like a Call of Duty tournament? And that Call of Duty tournament, which is sponsored by Twitch, will show him occasionally. If I'm Dr. Disrespect's counsel and I'm negotiating for a settlement in that arbitration, that's one of the things I ask for. That's one of the things that's crippling me. If I'm Dr. Disrespect, is that I can't participate in these tournaments that Twitch decides to sponsor. So I'm really interested in whether he makes an appearance on the next big one or not. Because right now, there's every indication that he wouldn't be allowed to. That certainly was what happened during the kind of interregnum period where he lost all these access points to Twitch. And, you settle up. You're thinking through the list of what would I settle for? Because a settlement is essentially both sides agreeing that it's too difficult to prove in an arbitration context, one thing or the other. We could talk about that. We could talk about my initial video as to why I thought the journalists were jumping the gun so much on this. But if I'm thinking about what I would ask for, one of the things I would ask was, okay, you're not going to highlight me. We're just going to broadcast what these tournaments are, but I have to be allowed to make my livelihood. And that's what I'm accusing you of, is killing that chance. And that's one of the things I would ask for. So I am interested in following the story for that. I don't know whether he would have gotten that or not. Certainly you can buy out of that if the check is big enough. There's all sorts of kinds of conditions that could have happened here. But unfortunately, as you say, Nick, we've got a letter, we've got a quote, and that is very likely the last we will ever hear about the specifics there.
Yeah, because they're likely bound by non-disclosure and non-disparagement agreements, because you're going to get that. Yep. And so Doc can't talk bad about Twitch, which I think favors Twitch. Non-disparagement favors Twitch more than Doc, because he can't talk bad about Twitch. Twitch doesn't really make public comments about streamers. Nor
did they with Dr. Disrespect. Absolutely. In fact, their comment was so oblique at the start. It was what raised my radar, is that they had a very standard statement that is essentially, we deal with people that violate our community standards in terms of service. I said, now that's an unusual statement, because he's bound to you for a completely different reason. And you're putting him in the bucket of, I go on Twitch and I cause trouble and you ban me. You see that every day. The Twitch bans people all the time for, strangling cats and things like that, or they don't ban them if they're making them enough money. It's up to them, really. But they go on there and they ban things. They say, you violated your community service standards. And I say, okay, fantastic. They said the same thing about a man that they had just signed for millions of dollars 3 months before. Right. Say, well, that's not good enough. That's very unusual. What in the hell is happening here? That's why it got so popular. And why it got so popular on top of that is freaking games industry, which I think has a lot of good journalists. I'm not just someone that says everything is horrible in games journalism, but that week especially, because there had been the kind of harassment discussion, Riot was in the news, these things were happening on Twitch, where all these discussions was so quick to leap to something god-awful must have happened here. We're hearing the FBI might be involved. Could he be a sexual assaulter? In these kinds of cases, like, oh, you got to be so damn careful. There's reasons there's ethics rules for journalists. When you're going to just toss this stuff out there when this is exactly how we would expect it to look. Everybody going quiet, statements doing nothing. If, oh, I don't know, one of the sides is owned by Jeff Bezos and one of the sides is freaking represented by CAA. This is what adults actually look like when they're negotiating contentious deals and problems. And
Right.
so that's what I said on YouTube. That's really what I brought to the table was this is exactly how we would expect it to look if you were having an issue with your multi-million-dollar contract and the other side thinks you are making an issue out of nothing, that you aren't under the breach terms of whatever it looked like. And you expect everybody to go quiet because at that point, Twitch is covering for some decision that they made that they still haven't explained. And Dr. Disrespect has millions of dollars on the line. And if you get to those numbers, you can pay a hell of a lot of very high priced lawyers to try to go get that back for you.
Right. And so one of the things though that is difficult, of course, is everybody out here. We're all out here and we're all looking at this. And I noticed this with the Nick Sandman stuff primarily, which is not at all related to Dr. Disrespect, except in the fact that Nick Sandman has settled a couple of his lawsuits with these major companies. And his lawsuits were for a huge amount of money. And so people then surmise that he has made in settlement a huge amount of money, which is it's a bold step, and it's theoretically possible that he got a significant payout. Even a nuisance payout could be significant depending on your income levels and stuff like that. But the likelihood on some of this stuff is that some of those early settlements were strategic to hopefully force someone else's hand for something bigger later on. Dr. Disrespect has this contract with Twitch, which is, I mean, who knows how much it was for, 10, $30 million. We don't really, I mean, I've seen multiple.
The Variety article says multi-millions, and then like they estimate, they think it might be like 12, but there's no indications that why anybody would know what that number is specifically.
Right. And I've seen ranges between 10 and 30 thrown out there, but, and I think that was based on some of the public disclosures that Mixer was getting at the time. And that's one of the key things to remember. Yeah. Mixer is a big part of the story because they were buying streamers off of Twitch. In fact, Ninja, who you mentioned earlier, I think was a Mixer purchase, and he was a significant amount of money.
Ninja was huge, and it happened just months before that. And the most important part of this story, in my opinion, is that Mixer goes under the week they cut Dr. Disrespect off. So one of the things I said, and I got freaking like, I don't know, I don't even remember these channels, esports, like professionals with like millions of views, saying like lawyer raises stupid theory on YouTube. All this stuff is happening when I put this video up, because one of the things I say is, okay, so your main competitor, who you are competing with both in terms of views and contracts, goes under, and then the only major exclusive contract that you have remaining, you decide to cancel. We cannot separate the fact that that value of the contract that you just signed took a nosedive.
Yep.
And that the lawyers undoubtedly get a memo that morning that says, check it out. Is there anything that we can do to get out of it? Like, regardless of how you feel about Dr. Disrespect, and this isn't me sitting here saying he did nothing. I have literally no idea. I'm saying the circumstances of the situation are, Twitch's lawyers have every reason to go over that contract and say, can we get some money back? Because we're going to go get Ninja and Shroud back. We're going to do that with Mixer gone, and they did. But we weren't really that interested in being the Dr. Disrespect fan club. He was controversial before he signed with Twitch, but Twitch was losing everybody. So they signed Dr. Disrespect. So all of that goes into a narrative that says, could they have overblown something? Could they be using something that they knew about when they signed the contract? And that's one of the major things that the Disrespect team would be fighting over. All of these things come into play because we know they had every reason to cancel that contract if they could that week. So that's all I said. I said Ninja and Shroud are out and available now. Dr. Disrespect's contract is immediately less valuable than when they signed it in March.
Immediately and dramatically valuable.
Absolutely.
If you want to think about it this way in different terms, because sometimes people get wrapped up in personalities, and it's hard to do that.
You do not have to like Dr. Disrespect.
Right. But Microsoft has been buying up like every video game studio that they could possibly get their hands on. And I'm laughing. I think it's funny. I think it's fine. And I think it's funny because Sony fanboys have been bitching about exclusivity for so long that I think it's funny that Microsoft is buying out these companies that would potentially be exclusivity farms for either one. But here's the reality. If Sony goes out of business tomorrow, which is not going to happen, but if that were to happen, right? Microsoft stops buying companies for the same
we don't know what
value.
Tencent and Embracer are still out there, but in the same
Right.
context, Twitch and Mixer were really the only ones fighting. So if you just imagine it's a two competitor market, absolutely everything that they're doing, they're spending money. You know how long it's going to take, regardless of whether they're successful or not, them to get 70 billion back from Activision. I mean, they're cash rich, so this is an investment they can make, and it's an inflationary environment and all these kinds of things. But you go into the bean counters room and they're going to tell you, well, it's going to take us years and years and years and years and years to get the value of that investment back. And if we don't have to fight over it, then why would we fight over it?
Right.
That's what Twitch saw that day. What are we fighting over? There's nobody to fight us anymore.
Yeah, because YouTube doesn't, I mean, YouTube might have some backroom deals with some video producers or content producers. That might be a thing. I'm not aware of any. They're not public in the way that Mixer and Twitch were. And so, and YouTube has not been a preeminent streaming platform. And at the time they were not. Twitch and Mixer were where you really succeeded in live streaming versus YouTube. But you know, yeah. So it's not like YouTube was going to suddenly go out and buy a bunch of streamers up that Twitch would preserve the value of keeping that exclusivity. And so I think your theory is 100% valid. If whether it's right, we'll never know. But it
doesn't matter. I mean, you could go and you could say the value has gone down, and the lawyers could sit there and say, "We got it. We got something." I mean, like, that's the part that's the full-on question mark. I am never said, and I will never intimate that I know anything about this. In fact, I can tell you, I got calls from people that said they knew things at Twitch, that claimed to be Twitch people, that said, you know, this one's serious and you shouldn't back him. I'm like, I'm not really backing anybody. I'm talking about the situation as it unfolds. I got those calls, which is really interesting for a guy that's, you know, not an investigative journalist and isn't used to these kinds of things. But to me, it's like, okay, and if they show that, I'll cover that as well. It's, you know, Twitch being quiet about these things, Dr. Disrespect being quiet about these things, leaves you in a very specific place. And one of the impetuses behind my making that video was I would be so reluctant if I worked at, you know, a major newspaper, or I was doing these various things and reporting on it, even to intimate these horrible things with so little information. That I found that to be a problem just from my perspective. You know, we cover law, we also cover business and messaging, and that winds up covering a lot of journalism. And that's the thing that I thought really was beyond the pale to me. It's like, maybe he did something horrible, but you got to wait a second before you say, "Whoa, he's gone," and it could be these, you know, he could have murdered a family, I guess. But that's just not a healthy way to report on people.
Yeah, and I'm skeptical of random accusations in general, and nothing in the disrespect, even in the the sphere that I saw, none of the allegations were solidified and clarified to a point where I would be comfortable saying this is even plausible at this point. Like there always could be, but it's like, shouldn't somebody in the age that we're in, because without beating around the bush too much, one of the allegations was in regards to inappropriate conduct with some female, and as a male who is in the public eye at this point in time, certainly that's an allegation that is commonly placed against people and commonly occurs, but also commonly doesn't occur. But one thing we've seen over the past couple of years is, as these things do happen, when they get some level of notoriety, even if they're wrong, the snowball starts. And I never saw a snowball with Dr. Disrespect with real details about what this thing could be. And it's like, somebody's got to know.
Even genre of what it is, right? You don't even get like the conceptual aspect. And one of the things that jumped out at me that same week, right, is he has a bunch of sponsors pull back immediately. and then a bunch of sponsors come back very, very quickly. We don't know what they asked of Twitch or anybody else, but it became very clear, I think, especially in retrospect, that Twitch was locked down. They weren't even sharing information with his sponsors, as best I can tell. And if it was that horrible, to me, again, you've got Twitch, which would have an ethical responsibility to at least say, it's this genre. These are the things that you would have to worry about. This is your brand that you're attaching to this. They never told anybody anything. And then you get weird reports in places like Kotaku and things that says even Twitch's brand managers, even their disciplinarians, aren't being told anything about this, that it's limited to like 3 people in the C-suite. And you start to go, and this is super weird. And of course, various of the journalists say, well, that's because it must be so serious and abhorrent. And I say,
that's not how today works.
Yeah, it's like, maybe, except like, then if it were that serious and abhorrent, that C-suite and that company and its parent company are taking on an awful lot of risk, because if it ever does leak out, then you're the guys that didn't tell anybody that this monster is out on the loose. Right. So, I mean, none of it ever made entirely a lot of sense. And that's where we left off. That's where we will leave off, because I will tell you that card video, that card picture, that quote, that says 100% negotiated settlement.
Yeah. And so, okay. So without us knowing what's done, what do you go for if you're Doc and your Twitch on this subject? Because you mentioned before, Doc, you want either you got to get back into some tournaments that are going to be sponsored by Twitch, because even if you're not on Twitch, you got to have access to tournaments to be an esports gaming streamer and getting in there. And especially because you want to go, if you're on a high level, you want to go win one of these things and rub it in Twitch's face, right?
Hopefully with a Twitch logo on the trophy, and then you can have fun with that on your own stream back home. You can't disparage anybody, but you can, put it in a unhappy position in the back of your videos, whatever. So no, that was 100% what I would ask for first. I mean, it depends on the check, right? If they're giving me $10 million to not do that, it's like, okay, all right, fine. But that's what I would ask for from his perspective. Twitch to me is probably impervious to the ramifications of this, but what I would have hoped for would be more streamers looking at that and saying, I mean, my God, they killed this man. We have no idea why. We're not ever going to find out why. And he was much bigger than me. He was much bigger than what I'm doing for this company, and they had no qualms about it at all. That's where, if I'm looking at that, I say Twitch, if it was feeling any pressure, should have to answer those kinds of things and make sure that people knew that there was a process in place and all these various things, and that we're going to take care of you. And they're doing that, I guess, a little bit, but not really related to Dr. Disrespect, who they've been just silent on. But from the content creator's perspective, I'd be saying, man, this is a dicey partner. This is a dicey partner.
Which for me goes back to your theory that this ultimately boils down to an immediate loss of value in a very expensive contract. And here's why it does that for me, because Twitch looks at this as a risk proposition. One, when they're buying these streamers, I'm going to say it, it's unlikely that they're getting, let's say he's a $12 million contract. It's unlikely that they're getting their dollars back on this in a short term, right? These are long-term investments, and they don't need exclusivity to make money on Twitch streamers, right? Like they really don't. If they don't pay Dr. Disrespect at the time, he stays on Twitch and makes them full ad revenue that they're going to get anyway. The cut of the transactional revenue, that's going to be there. Whether their only loss of income is if he goes to Mixer or something like that. But once that's gone, the incentive to make him exclusive is gone. And so he's there, and they're looking at now whatever else they're going to pay him, paying a premium on top of that.
Yes.
So now that goes away. And so your question is, so what's the downside risk for Twitch? So the downside risk for Twitch is that if they ban him, they get a lawsuit for a breach of contract, and they pay their attorneys, they pay his attorney's fees, and they end up paying out the value of the contract.
Yeah, the 12 million.
That's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario. So they go, we're probably going to beat the worst case scenario. But the worst case scenario is it's 12 million plus another 250, 300,000 in attorney's fees. You know, our attorney's fees and his attorney's fees. If this thing gets bloody, it could get there. It could maybe go a little higher, but you're really, when you're talking about a $12 million contract, you're capping, maybe $1 million in attorney's fees, both sides.
And presumably at the same time, you're aware of the fact that you've got confidential arbitration provision in the contract you're talking about. So you don't have to worry about public blowback.
Right. And so your downside risk is, instead of paying $12 million for someone who could, I mean, in theory, Dr. Disrespect and any streamer could fizzle out any month, right? They could go on a big drug bender and kill a hooker or something.
Well, Dr. Disrespect more than most, right? He had already had a couple of controversies that were like, all right.
Right. So now you look at this and you go, we can take on a minimal amount of risk to mitigate $12 million of risk. And that becomes a very acceptable proposition pretty quickly by saying, like, the worst case scenario is we pay out the 12 million we're obligated to pay for plus a little bit more, or our other option is paying out zero. Well, paying out our legal fees to our attorneys.
Well, I would say that they also have to discount, which I think they did, and it looks like properly, whether or not this kind of action, which may not get a public answer at all in that scenario with the confidential arbitration, is going to cost them goodwill or faith of their product and their streamers that make them what they are. Right. And that's when I would sit here, if someone were to ask me, I'd say everything Twitch has done makes me very cautious about working with them, and especially at the higher end. Right. One of the things that surprised me is like Ninja signed right back up. And to me, I thought there would be at least a little bit more caution to be, they have no qualms about doing that analysis that you just did, Nick, which is, what we might call something approaching an efficient breach kind of proposition. It just makes more sense for me to not be in this contract anymore. So I don't care about what the terms say. If we have to fight about it, I got freaking Amazon money. So, if you want to fight me on that, that's fine. And it's unlikely that most people would. It's that Dr. Disrespect actually was represented by freaking high-end counsel throughout the whole process that led to this outcome. Most of the people you're going to be able to steamroll on this kind of stuff, and maybe get them to have a footfall, right? The best thing Dr. Disrespect did was essentially go silent. That is the very first thing your lawyers would have said. Shut up. We'll figure this out. We're going to go behind the scenes. This is millions of dollars. You shut up or you'll lose them. But other streamers not represented by that kind of counsel, they're going to say something stupid. They're going to go out there and make themselves worse. So I think the worst case scenario was actually losing mass credibility at the channel, which was non-zero. But I think they said, nah, that's not likely to happen, and it seems that they're right, especially because network effects. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go? Also, they're not looking to make that many more of these deals at the level. And I think I can answer why Ninja and Shroud went right back to Twitch what seems to me to be the case. If Mixer folds and defaults on their contract, I mean, their recourse is either pay a whole bunch of money to try and collect from a parent company, try and pierce the layers of corporate protection that are there, or they can just take a contract from Twitch at a reduced amount. But look, if you sign a $30 million deal with Mixer, you're like, oh, this is Microsoft money. This is going to be great. I'll definitely get paid this $30 million. You might go out and buy a nice house. You might buy some cars. So these people may have dipped into that living expectation and now need to make money back. And Twitch is able to buy them back at a discount and say, yeah, well, you're locked in here. That's good money.
I honestly don't know how the Mixer, how that liquidation.
I don't either. I'm speculating.
Went. Yeah. Right. I know at the time the stories were, well, this was guaranteed that the cancellation of the contract was actually pay out the rest of the term. I said, well, those are kind of stupid contracts in this scenario, but okay, Mixer. It would be, I don't know that we'll have any kind of optical transparency on those kinds of questions either, but that's a good explanation, which is that happens all the time, right? That happens. You start cashing checks you don't have yet. And then you start scrambling. It's Nicolas Cage's career.
It's his career. It's really prevalent in the sports world. 23-year-old gets signed with a big signing bonus. That signing bonus is contingent upon performance, though. And so they go out, they buy a bunch of cars, and then they
But
get
they're
injured.
invincible. Yeah.
They get
Yep.
they get injured in preseason and they're out, and suddenly that signing bonus goes away. Those contracts disappear. They get benched and traded. They might have a a career-ending multi-ligament tear in a knee, and they're done. And it's like, wait, but I was promised all this money. It's like, yeah, but
Sure.
you didn't actually play. And one of my friends' relatives is he's a friend and a relative, but he's a financial planner in a major metro area. And that's one of the things he does. He's talking to these kids walking into $1 million contracts. And he's like, okay, what are you putting away? How are you investing this? They're like, what do you mean investing this? I got this house to buy. I got to pay off my parents' house. I'm going to buy a car and do this. And he's like, what happens if you get hurt? What do you mean if I get hurt? It's like,
Yeah.
if you get
I
hurt, this
believe
is
it.
all gone. It's all gone tomorrow. And it's so I think it's possible with the Mixer situation that you ran into some of that, and that's why people would go back. But for me, like these days, the check for exclusivity would have to be massive. Like to think about it. And I'm thinking in context of right now, alternative tech solutions, right? There was the Joe Rogan thing with Spotify, and then Rumble comes out and says, we'll pay you 100 million over 4 years. Odyssey says, we'll pay you 100 million over X amount of years, or 120 million or whatever they offered. And it's like, I think alt tech might look to poach some big names if they think that that'll bring people to their alt tech platform and then raise them up. But it's like, how do you do exclusivity in this business? And I think the exclusivity model was a problem from the start between Mixer and Twitch. I don't think that this industry works well with exclusivity, because the high level people on Twitch are cross marketing on YouTube, and that builds their Twitch channel and provides a second stream of very significant revenue when they get up there.
Yeah. Well, you hope that all the platforms won't axe you for unknown reasons at the same time.
Right.
So sometimes that still occurs, but certainly, yeah, all of these things are fraught, right? I don't know about you, Nick. I constantly am thinking, well, maybe this is the day that YouTube just decides to take a run at me. I
watch I watch when YouTube does the about this, the on off switch with subscribers, where some months you're like gaining subscribers like gangbusters, no matter what you do. It's like, oh, I put out 1 video a week or 10 videos a week. It doesn't matter. People are just subscribing, your stuff's getting distributed. And then something happens like every 6 weeks and there's an off switch and you watch your numbers trickle down slowly. And it's like, and then you gain them back and then they trickle down slowly and then you gain them back. And it's like, what did I do? What did I do? Is that
your behavior can be identical. If people don't know this, you don't have to change a thing, and you can be hitting on the topics of the day and all these things. And it's a black box. It's a complete black box, and there's no explanation for why these things happen. But YouTube has that network effect. YouTube is the place to go to get viewers and subscribers, and we're very thankful for them. Thank you. Go check out Virtual Legality. But it's the kind of thing that can drive you nuts if you stare at it too long. I try not to stare at analytics too much, because it's like, put out good stuff, put out stuff you're proud of, put out stuff you're interested in. Like, that's the most important part. I think subscribers and people that watch YouTube are smart enough to watch somebody that's like, oh, they found some SEO topics and they're not feeling this one. But YouTube can do that. YouTube. I got a strike for cyberbullying, which I won against them. Cyberbullying. I had some nasty things to say about them defaming me on their little card. On a
you
video,
seem like a quintessential cyberbully.
Yes, I am. You know it about me. But this was one of those where YouTube decided to do like an after the fact algorithm change, like a search bot for terminology and things. I got hit on a video at the time that I think was out for 1.5 years. And I said, okay, so this has been monetized for 1.5 years. What's going on here? And now it's cyberbullying. I think the full phrase is cyberbullying and harassment. For those of you that don't get like YouTube emails, they're so damn condescending. The emails are automated, they're boilerplate, but they're like, well, you might not have realized, but cyberbullying and harassment are actually against our terms of service. And so, we're gonna have to put some pain on you now. We're gonna rough you up a little bit. I
Show me your thumbs.
I said, save it back and said, like, watch this damn video. I'm who. By the way, who would I be harassing? The video was actually on tech censorship. Like, am I harassing you? Is this what are you talking about? And they actually, and I've been told by some of the rest of Law Tube that this is unusual for them. They actually pulled it back like in 2 days. I had some nasty things to say about them, but I did a video. You know, that's the thing. It's like, well, YouTube strikes video on YouTube censorship. You know?
Yep.
So
it's a great narrative.
Well, that was the moment where I said, okay, I got to start thinking about other ways to monetize the channel, other ways to talk about this. Look at other platforms is like, yeah, you can't, who knows what'll happen. I now have, as I said, like 700 videos up. If they change like one given word, they could strike it 17 times. You know, you just don't know. And they don't care about any given channel. So
yeah, that's one thing people don't understand. It's like, well, this channel makes them a bunch of money. It's like, yeah, but another channel will. Like YouTube can just, if they really want to, they can just turn on the distribution algorithm for whatever channel, because the advertisers, so long as the content doesn't offend the advertiser, they don't care if the content is well produced. They care if the content and the ads are well watched. And so if YouTube can theoretically turn on the distribution algorithm fountain on a video and it gets 8 million views, it doesn't matter if that video is like a guy boiling eggs. Frankly, if 8 million people watch through the first ad, then that video has created the same value as if it's the most well-produced 10,000 hours of editing documentary that deep dives into the most important subject ever, which is probably only going to get 3,000 views if we're honest. But the boiling egg video has the same value no matter what work was put into it as the other one. And that's what you realize. So what we try to do as creators is grab content subjects that we can talk about that are also interesting enough to other people that they'll click on it. And we try and make a title or thumbnail attractive enough to get that initial view. And then we hope that that person subscribes and watches our other stuff too. But YouTube has way better, like we're playing with their system, but if they wanted to, they can turn on the fountain on any channel. They really could. It could be the worst content and they could put it in everybody's timeline and they'll start watching it because by the numbers, somebody will. And so, like they have the ability to make back whatever they lose from any particular streamer, no matter how big they are. And Twitch is largely the same way. I mean, Twitch puts you on the front page and you got 500 more live stream viewers.
That's it. Yeah, no, I call it catching the algorithm, but you occasionally get one of those videos that takes your little projection line and then it just goes straight up. And you're like, well, that wasn't me. Like I didn't do anything different.
And
you
just got lucky. You
say, hey, all right.
And my point is that these platforms can manipulate luck because they control the luck. they can. That I'm not saying they do all the time, but they absolutely can. Both ways. And it's,
well, I can tell you the most obvious way, just algorithmically, it's not a manual, I think, is if you include YouTube, the name of the platform in the title, it depresses the living crap out of your views. Like they just don't talk about YouTube.
Nope. Nope. Don't do it. Don't do it. And if you watch the quartering, you know, the magic words are my channel is under attack. Like you do that. And that's a great one. That will get tons of views. My channel, I might have to delete the channel. It's perfect.
That's what I should have called it back in the day. Damn. Oh,
that's what I do. Well, that's what I did with Long Crimes. Like my channel's under attack. Long Crime. It was an obvious nod to the quartering because his channel is constantly got people. When you get big enough, right? People are constantly out to get you in some way, and it works really well for him. With that, I want to talk about someone who is under attack and deservedly so, in my opinion.
Okay.
And that's Artesian Builds.
I don't know if they're under attack. I think they're dead at the side of the road now, unfortunately.
Yeah, there might be urine on the corpse at this point.
Have you talked about this story at all? I mean, I can give the background.
Very briefly. I think I talked about it in one live stream as an off thing, but yeah, give the background. Artesian, it's a fascinating story. Gundam has done a couple. It's a Gundam has done a couple really good videos on it.
Okay.
But I would love to hear your take and background on it because.
Well, first of all, as so many commenters come in and tell me, it's not Artisan Builds, which would make a lot of sense because they're hand making PC computers on stream. It is Artesian Builds, which one can only presume was either a mistake at the front end or Artisan's Builds was already taken. But Artesian is apparently of or relating to groundwater, which I don't know has any impact on whether or not you can make computers. But long story short, these guys are streamers. They actually have a decent idea for a business model. That's one of the things that I was impressed by, which is essentially working with big streamers of their own that play video games and having them sponsor things and then convincing people to buy custom-made PCs from them and doing it in a kind of gamified way on Twitch and getting that kind of FOMO zeitgeist kind of feel to it, which I think could work. However,
yeah.
It probably doesn't work if your CEO decides to do some pretty crazy stuff. And in this particular case, what they were running was supposedly an ambassador sweepstakes that was, and this is really, really went off the track, sponsored by Intel, not a minor company. So this is telling you about their success. They are actually really good at marketing. They had an excellent marketing department. They were signed up with really big sponsors much bigger than their actual profile would indicate. This was sponsored by Intel. Intel provided computer components, that kind of thing. And the big deal ticket item was a multi-$1,000 PC that they were making. And they pull this person's name who is an ambassador. That was the only requirement they really had. He's an ambassador to their channel. And
ambassador means that you put a panel on Twitch. You have panels below the channel that have links and some literature in them. Usually it's like, hey, you can check out this this affiliate of mine. I'm in the affiliate program for Artesian Builds, a great custom PC game manufacturer. Right. And if you click this link, it'll take you there and you can use promo code Giant Nose and get 10% off your Artesian computer. It's custom hand built. Right. Exactly. So that's the ambassador program. And yeah, I think you're correct. And basically the only and it's free to sign up for this thing because it's all gain to them. They don't give anything.
Well, they had to check. They actually did have qualifications. You had to have certain minimum amounts of followers on something or subscribers on YouTube. They had a page that talked about these things. They were very, very small. Like I think it was like 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Very, very small requirements. You become an ambassador. Sure. And they're running this big ticket item. And on this stream, their CEO effectively says they use a random number generator, a random name generator, and they get a winner. And the CEO says, you didn't win. I don't want to give it to you. You're not big enough. Nobody clicked on your link on your page.
So stupid.
And immediately this story comes up and I said, oh my goodness gracious, you can't change the rules. There's so many problems already. If you just think about streaming, if you think about influencers, if you think about social media, with the laissez-faire attitude towards giveaways. And if you don't know anything else about it, if you take one thing away from this stream, it's that giveaways are enormously regulated. They're regulated on a federal basis. They're regulated on a state basis. They're regulated in each jurisdiction in the world. And so there are lawyers that just do this, that say, all right, you want to give away something of some moderate value. What jurisdictions? That's why you get a commercial and you want to get a free Arby's sandwich or whatever. And it says not valid in Hawaii or whatever else it says, because they have a specific provision that says no foods or whatever it might be. All of that is hypothetical. I'm just giving an example. But in this particular case, throughout the stream, he was effectively changing the rules and saying, well, we want you to be big. We want you to do something for us as well. And he has some quotes. I have a video on Virtual Legality. I highly recommend checking out, where I pull the quotes from the stream. And
they're good.
There are a couple of bad ones. There's like if you're not big enough, you're not giving us your end of the bargain. And all these things which lean towards what we call in the legal field consideration. That you
I want to put forth. Yeah, I fully endorse all of his comments. That streamer was tiny and terrible. Her channel should be deleted immediately. But he was really stupid to say it on stream.
yeah. I mean, hey, you can take the position that Artesian Builds was really after an ambassador program reward that was just going to be, you did the most for us. I mean, you can frame these as a competition that makes more sense. You know, who brought us the most clicks? You're going to get a computer. These kinds of things. You can do these things, work with a lawyer, make sure you're comporting with the various jurisdictional rules. What you can't do is say that it's a sweepstakes, say that the constraints are that you're an ambassador, decide that the people on your ambassador list, I think what he winds up saying is like something like 80 or 90% of the people on the list I won't allow to win this particular computer. And like, well, that's not, so can they know that? How in the world would that work? And then you get to a person that actually almost complies with his crazy random setup throughout the stream, because she did stream in the last, I think they say 3 days. She does have the thing on the panel, right? You could have a situation where you're an ambassador, but you're not actually doing what you're supposed to be doing, that kind of thing. She has everything up. She's just too small. And he says no. And then he says something along the lines of, and here's why I'm killing you. Nobody clicked on your links. And I'm like, well, that doesn't appear anywhere. And in fact, you made that up like 8 minutes ago. And so you've got a situation where a sweepstakes, which can largely work, that's why you don't see, streamers all having a lot of problems with it, becomes what looks to me a lot like a lottery. Now, I can't make any promises there. You'd have to go talk to a lawyer that knows a little bit more about the facts and circumstances. But if you find yourself thinking that what you just did was a lottery, you're on the way wrong side of all of these regulations, because what the governments of these various jurisdictions don't want is competition for their lotteries. That's the real politic of the situation. And so if you find yourself getting consideration for a randomly drawn, non-skill-based contest like this, and you're on stream live, effectively looking like an asshole and changing the rules on the fly, you've got a problem. And of course, Artesian Builds had a problem, and they continue to have a problem if they exist.
Yeah, I think they're up in the air right now.
Yeah.
With that, like they're trying to survive, but anything that guy touches and is associated with him is going to be very toxic for a long time. And to the chat, if you didn't catch it, I'm joking kind of about the streamer, but like what he said about the streamer was true, but he
too small to be useful to them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you set up the parameters, so you don't get to do that anymore. And it's like you put your link on all these, like you said, it's like 1,000 subscribers or 1,000
they had their setup set too low. I mean, they 100% had it set too low. They changed their minds as they got a little bit bigger, and that's part of what you hear on the stream is that, well, we have some ambassadors, but other people are going to be, I can't remember what the term they used, that's just below ambassadors. And we're going to effectively split that list off, but we haven't gotten it done yet. And it's like, well, even if you had, you then say that you're all grandfathered into this contest and you're going to have the rights that you had. And the new people are going to be the ones that are subject to the new terms. Only we're not going to grandfather you into like whatever we decide, not to grandfather. The biggest problem here is transparency, right? You can survive a bunch of this stuff if you're clear on rules, if you're going to, you're not going to get a call from the AG's office usually. If you're doing these things and you're complying with just basic knowledge parameters, you do this stuff on the fly, you get news reports written about you, you're done. I mean, once those articles start coming out in games journalism and the various places that cover these things, and then you are acting like an asshole to a little streamer while you're wearing a Star-Lord jacket, it's just not going to work out well for you. And then, as I cover in Virtual Legality, we talk about messaging a lot. And then they had the Activision Blizzard problem. They had a non-apology series of threads that acted as an advertisement for them on Twitter, or tried to. Then you have an insincere apology. Then I think I finished my first video on this, said, I hope you find some lawyers before Intel finds theirs. And then you have an Intel statement that says, we are not in favor of any of this. I said, oh God, Intel noticed you. This is done. And then immediately after that, you see statements from them that try to be a little bit more on the apologetic side. And then a video that looks like a hostage tape as he tries to look sincere about feeling bad about this. And, I think internally he feels like he's been put upon, right? Like this is such a little deal. They're my computers to give away. And what the hell is everybody talking about? Right. I mean, like you see that in that statement.
Yeah, they were, but what you should have done is made the rules clear from the start, if that's how you wanted to do it. And no one would have complained, by the way. Yeah, by the way, any of our ambassadors who have had someone purchase a computer in the past 12 months through their affiliate link are welcome to participate in this program. We want to, promote and reward our ambassadors who are working hard to promote our products, and that's great. But what they've effectively done is they said, look, we're going for a 0.1% shot on any channel that's got 1,000 subscribers or more that someone will bite, which is fine because they have a high reward industry. You're buying a custom PC. There's lots of markups in custom PCs, and especially if you're monetizing the labor, like if you're live streaming the build and then using that as cross promotion, then you take the 3 hours that it takes you to assemble this PC and you've made that into 3 hours of more money and more marketing. It's a really good model. But
that was the thing that jumped out at me. I said, "Oh, that can work."
it can work. It can work. But if you're going to do it and then set up some streamer to then participate and then go, nah. And the best part was, and this is what Gundam points out, that guy's his personal Twitter account had way less interactivity than that streamer had. Way less interaction, way less followers and stuff like that. And it's like, here you are denigrating someone else's social media presence and yours is garbage. Like, what are you doing? But no, I thought it was funny. They deserved it. Well, he deserved it. His employees didn't deserve it.
Right? I mean, that was a bigger company than anybody could have guessed. And
right,
they went down with a crazy person. I mean, any company of that kind of size, and I think this happens a little bit more with social media facing things and streaming. Any company of that kind of size really should have, counsel, a compliance person that's at least like saying, hey, you're going to do this thing, totally fine. Keep these things in mind, and going forward with that. And sometimes you see companies, and it's not limited to this industry, even tech companies or somebody else gets a little too big, a little too fast, and don't have kind of that guardrail system in place for even recognizing that you're doing something with this risk, right? I mean, the main purpose of my initial video was, hey, folks, sweepstakes, big deal. Talk to somebody. Here's an example of how this can go horribly wrong. And that just doesn't come across to a lot of these kinds of companies that just are bootstrapped or otherwise built by themselves.
Yeah, and that was the thing that I noticed too was this company is huge. Like, you got all these employees, you got multiple locations. This guy was apparently making a ton of money doing it too, because he's got like a BMW i8. It's a very expensive car. And I'm like, how are they doing this? But I guess if you sell enough computers with enough markup, but I didn't know you never know how these companies are doing, right? Like, I see companies all the time. Like, I don't understand how they make money, but they do. And these are traditional companies. Like, you walk into a store and you're like, you're selling all these $8 herbal supplements, and I don't see anybody in here ever. I don't understand why you're driving a BMW, but you are. But
that's what I always think about in my downtown corridor. I'm in a small town in Michigan, but it's a delightful town, and it's one of those small shops. And it's like, I know what the rent is here. How is this working?
Yeah, it's it blows my mind every time. I mean, I'm talking from convenience stores on up. Like, I'm like, but they do it. Like, I'm just saying it's always a mystery to me. I know how to do my thing. I don't know how to do other people's things. And I know there are people who do my thing way smarter and better than I do too. So
that's always the case. Always somebody working smarter and better.
But the crazy thing is what you're talking about with the lotteries, and because I looked at doing a giveaway on Patreon a long time ago. It was like, I got these Patreon subscribers. Wouldn't it be great if I just go ahead and like give out a shirt based on people who are subscribed? Nope. No, that's
straight consideration.
Right. You cannot do that. It's heavily regulated. You have to get permission. One, Patreon doesn't allow it, but and if they find any hint that you've done that, you're banned forever. But two, it's also illegal to do it, which is why they don't allow it. You have to get permission, because it's gambling essentially. Oh, I pay my money into this thing. It's basically like a scratch off or a pull tab to get this thing. It's like, it's a shirt. It's just a shirt. No one cares, but you can't do it.
I hear you. And then the follow-up question that people ask me then is, aren't all raffles lotteries then? And the answer is yes, give or take. But raffles generally have an exemption in the jurisdictions for nonprofit support for, instead of cash prizes, only up to a certain amount. Because in general, the lawyers and the legislatures, when they wrote these kinds of things, didn't want to kill, the high school bingo game and that kind of thing for supporting them. So raffles generally have a separate section that says, yes, this is a lottery, but, and so that's why you see those when you're at your school fair.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. So yes, the streamer, they tried to do a mea culpa and offer her a PC. She turned it down,
She
which
told
is
him to pound sand. I do respect it.
yeah, it's the right move to make also. And she's on Twitch, so it monetizes differently. But had she been on YouTube and done like the FU public video of my response to their offer to give me a pity PC, right? Or whatever, that video probably could have come close to making enough money to just buy a PC anyway, if she had done it right. But she did the right thing. And then Jay's 2 cents came in. He gave her a PC, said, yeah, this is crazy. And all the company had to do was just give up the PC and say, this is great. This person, they could even say it. This is one of our streamer ambassadors. They haven't actually had anybody buy through their affiliate link, but we love the fact that they're out there promoting our products, promoting our brand. We would love to support them. And we're hoping that with this PC, they'll be able to grow their social media presence. And this will be a great thing. We love small creators. We love big creators. And we think all of us work together great in this area. They could have done that so easily. And
100%.
It wouldn't
It
have
is
changed
helpful
anything.
if you believe any of that to start. Not
Right.
mandatory, but clearly not in evidence here. I mean, that's your real problem. If you've got a person that can't do that kind of messaging and sincerely doesn't believe that, that's your fundamental issue. That's how this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, it's the way to do. They did it the wrong way. There is a right way, a simple way. And the funny thing is, to me, the cost benefit analysis works the same. I mean, sure, they give some PC to some massive streamer, they can make a publicity thing, but they already tried that. They gave like a $15,000 PC to Amaranth, and it's like, it was shaped like BB-8 from Star Wars. And it's like, but like, that's not actually selling your computers, I don't think. But in the sweepstakes, or whatever you want to call it, isn't for that. That's a marketing expense. That is, we're going to do this. We're going to invest in this thing, give it to this person, hope that pays dividends. The sweepstakes is how you give it to not Amaranth. It's how you give it as like how you market without doing that marketing.
Well, I called it double dipping, right? The reason you're having that is you want people in your ambassador pool. Look at the cool things you can get, and let's celebrate it. You don't even have to be big for us. But instead, you double dipped and said, okay, we were going to try to bring people in to be our ambassadors, but also we need you to be doing a little something for us. It's like, oh, see, you're just, that's how you get burned.
Yeah. And well, deserved burn. Bad thoughts. Real quick. And then
Sure.
I've got 2 things I want to do.
Okay.
Lately I've been doing the daily unbreaded. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I think somebody tried to explain it to me on Twitter. I will check it out in real life here.
Okay. So the daily unbreaded is the reading of 1 page of the manifesto of Matthew Harris, which is, it's a little bit edgy, but we'll talk about that.
Am I going to be scandalized?
I don't know if you will.
Okay. Right.
I haven't been. People seem to like, this is a crazy man, right? Matthew Harris was the UCLA professor who posted his 800-page manifesto to the UCLA philosophy department's message board. And he was arrested for also making terroristic threats. The manifesto got a lot of press, but his emails really did him in, because he said he was going to come and shoot up everybody and stuff like that. So he's been arrested, but his manifesto is hilarious.
Okay.
Because this is a crazy man, but he's also got a PhD. And so when you mix PhD and insanity, you get good results.
Okay. All right. Quite an intro.
Yeah. So I read a page out of that every night. And then of course there are super chats to go through. Okay. Speaking of which, Dex Luther says they did that with the van down by the river chick, which I'm not sure what that was referencing. I think that was during our discussions with about Dr. Disrespect. But I wanted to get your opinion on. You said you've checked out Halo,
Halo,
the show.
Paramount Plus, produced by Showtime. Yeah. Have you
How
seen this thing?
I have seen things about it, but I haven't watched anything from it. I
Do
haven't.
you have any connection or love of Halo as a series? Of video
Um,
games?
I mean, so Halo 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, the good
When
one.
each of them came out, my buddy bought Halo 1. I had not heard of it, and he's like, "Hey, I got this game. It's co-op. It's a co-op shooter. We can play at the same time. Want to come over?" And so I think we skipped work or school or something,
That's what I like
maybe
to hear.
both. Yeah, and we sat down and we played through Halo 1 in like 6 or 8 hours or something, just running through the game in co-op, and it was a magical experience. So then Halo 2 comes out, we did the same thing. Halo 3 comes out, and by that time we're both, like I'm out of college and stuff, but it still took the day off, went over, we played through Halo 3 and it was a blast.
Yep.
So I loved doing that. But that's about where it stopped for me because I
Well, you picked a
ran.
good stopping point. Yeah.
Yeah, I ran out of time on all the other Halos to do stuff like that, and my buddy and I, we're now both old men. We have conflicting schedules and stuff. So, but I have very fond memories of that, and I'm familiar with the Master Chief story to some extent.
Well, forget all you know, I guess is the best way to say it for the Paramount show. If we want to give benefit of the doubt to what it is, it might be an acceptably generic sci-fi action shooter thing. It is decided to just say, we got a man in a green suit and we've got some names and we're going to do something completely different with it. I might have tweeted out that the show pilot is for those that miss the depth and narrative of the average theme park stunt show. I might have tweeted that out. But I also might be too harsh on it. To me, the Halo series that Bungie made was about wonder and awe. It had very specific things that were unusual even today for shooters. It had that kind of weirdly majestic religious music on top of
Yeah.
science fiction images with very specific naming conventions for things like the Pillar of Autumn as the ship and a halo, for God's sakes, being a halo against a religious enemy on a kind of crusade. And skip all that, right? That's too hot button. Instead, what we've got is a kind of traditional military fascism that's running a program that has a Master Chief in it and some shootouts and some dodgy CGI. They also said we can't just have him in the helmet because he can't emote enough. We can't connect to him. So the very first episode of the show takes his helmet off. And that's fine. I actually don't have a problem with that decision. And I don't have a problem with the actor as an actor. I have a problem with taking off the helmet and seeing this particular face as Master Chief. And this can be my problem alone. I don't know how everybody else feels about it. And almost laughing just because of the juxtaposition. I chuckled at that is like not at all how I think of Master Chief. I think I did tweet out this earlier today.
Is there a picture of this? Can we?
Maybe I don't know if somebody's got a picture. Most of the places have been trying to avoid it as a spoiler, so maybe we could pull up a picture. But I think I jokingly said it was the equivalent to me of Master Chief taking the helmet off and it being Patton Oswalt under there. Just in terms of that's not what I was thinking of. And some other places have praised the motion on his face and things like that, and they're clearly going for a broken Master Chief, a Master Chief that is not as gung-ho as he is in the games and is dealing with a midlife crisis brought upon by touching an alien rock.
Okay, I've got it pulled up here.
Okay, yeah.
So spoiler alert.
Spoilers. If you're wondering what Master Chief's face looks like, it's not this guy, but he's coming up in moments.
Yeah, here we go. So that's it.
That's the Master Chief.
Now, I was under the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I tried to watch that Halo show that they did on the Microsoft.
That was a few years back. Yeah,
and it wasn't like bad or whatever. It
was video gaming. Yeah,
it's video gaming, and I don't think I got through all of it. But aren't the aren't the Spartans, aren't they like 14 years old, like 12 or 14 years old?
No, they're
pulled to
captured
the
as
program?
kids. They're normally aged as far as I know, but you're asking me to get into lore that's going to get me busted by somebody here in the chat, because most of the storytelling in the Halo universe is in like book form and ancillary stuff. And 343, after they took over from Bungie, introduced a lot more of that stuff that I really just didn't care for in 343's treatment of this. This is trying to go back to the beginning. This is like the start of the Covenant fight. This is Master Chief really at the earliest parts of his career, as best we can tell. And this, him taking his helmet off, is to essentially prove that he's no longer the puppet of the fascist UNSC, which really dives deep into an evil military industrial complex empire, which doesn't come across in the mainline Halo games, where you're fighting the Covenant and that kind of thing. So it's a different direction entirely. It's a different universe. It's not built to be canon. It's almost like a Marvel property, right? Where it's a different version of these kinds of events and how they might be mixed together. But didn't work for me. And the worst part to me is the music's god awful. Or more specifically, the music is completely nondescript. It's really, really standard sci-fi warbles and suspense music, when Halo was always really about very strong themes in terms of musical scoring. And I don't know how you screw that up. I don't. You can.
They gave you the recipe.
They did that. They gave you that part of the recipe at least. And so instead, they just kind of quote various sections of the music, and otherwise just give you, whatever generic sounds would have been behind an episode of, Andromeda or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the problem with the Master Chief is I think you can never take the helmet off of him. You can have other Spartans without their helmet on, but Master Chief, he was the faceless hero. And so everybody, and it's a video game. You're supposed to see yourself under the helmet, right? Like that's you in the suit, not this guy.
Well, I'm sympathetic. So I don't view myself as Master Chief. I mean, I'm not, that's not how I would see the Master. If my face popped out, I would also chuckle. But watching this particular instance, it's like I'm sympathetic to a TV producer saying, we'd really like to have our main character emote with his eyes and his features. I'm sympathetic to this, and I'm sympathetic to this actor who didn't do anything wrong. I don't think. It's just that the way he gives his lines, the way they've set him up, the fact that their first plot line is breaking him down.
That's the son from The Wire. People are saying he's from season 2 of The Wire. Yeah, he's the dock worker kid.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't recognize him at all with the beard, because in The Wire, well, and that was like 10 or 12 years ago.
A long time ago.
Yeah. Holy hell, that's him. It's crazy.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't pop into my head at all when I was watching it. But yeah, you've also got people in my comments when I put that tweet out there saying they really liked it. I suspect it's not going to be Halo. There's really very little that felt like Halo when watching it.
Right.
If you're okay with that, it might be able to deliver a kind of decent-ish generic sci-fi, maybe.
Well, see, I think that there's one movie that showed us that you can pull this off without emoting, without having the character emote with their eyes, at least, was Dredd. 2014 Judge Dredd remake. Carl Urban never takes his helmet off. I think it's Carl Urban. Never takes his helmet off. All of his emotions come in the scowl right here. That's it. And they were able to pull that off. And from what I heard, it was actually, it was kind of hard to find an actor to agree to not be on camera, because there's no self-promotion in that. Like, it's just,
you saw that with Pedro Pascal in The Mandalorian, right? You get all these rumors where he's like, I need to take my helmet off more. It's like, no, that's not what we signed up for.
Yeah.
But you get actors, right? Actors.
Right. But man, in Dredd, I thought they did it right. And I thought if he would have pulled his helmet off and been him, it would have made the mistake, because just that chin hanging out is the iconic image of Dredd. You don't ever need to see the rest of him. You just need to see his disdain.
The funny thing with the Halo show is I was more sympathetic, as I just said, to the position that you need to see his face before I saw about the first half of the episode. I'm like, oh, he's emoting fine. I mean, like you're getting feelings from this robot character in a helmet. So it's like, now I'm less sympathetic because I'm understanding his emotions through his body language.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think it works at all. It's not because he shows his face. It's because I just that didn't match up to me.
Is there a chick with magical powers in this show? I heard there
Um,
is.
So, as far as I know, she doesn't have magical powers at this point in time, but it is very similar to a Mandalorian and Grogu setup. And if anything, I also mentioned that, which is like I've had enough Lone Wolf and Space Cub to last me a lifetime. And so, at least at the end of the pilot, it's set up like you almost are like, well, it seems like they watched The Mandalorian, which I don't think is the strongest foundation to base your new show on. But I don't want to just disparage it and say there's no hope for the thing. I just think you should cast aside if you want it to feel like Halo, whatever that means to you. I very much doubt it's going to feel like that property. And that always bugs me a little bit. You know, make your generic sci-fi show, but you're using this for branding. And I never liked that so much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And it's why those sci-fi shows end up failing, I think, a lot of times. Like the accompaniment show just doesn't work. Like if you want to do a generic sci-fi show, just do one and don't make it Halo and it'll be better. That was my problem with the RoboCop reboot, for example.
Yeah.
I liked it, but it wasn't RoboCop. And it's like, if you would have just called this Robot Comp, Robot Police or something
that sounds
else.
like one of those DVDs you find next to the actual product. It's like, oh, it's Robot Cop.
Yes, the PBS special. But it's like I wanted to like that movie even more because I thought it was fun. It was cool to watch. They did some fun things, but it's like you've missed the spirit of what is RoboCop in the pursuit of making a cool sci-fi thing. And I think that happens a lot with any of these reboots or inclusive universe properties. You really run a high risk of losing the spirit of what made it good in the first place. And that ambiance of Halo, just I killed that, but it doesn't matter. But that idea, this operatic background chorus, and then with the Covenant and all of these heavy themes are coming in, that's quintessential to the story. Is the Covenant are waging a holy war and UNSC is trying to just like survive.
Yeah, and they've got the Covenant. They've got a nicely rendered scene with the Prophet. But they also have one of those things which you see more and more of in sci-fi, which is they have a human person on High Charity in order to, I don't know, give a certain amount of relatability to the aliens. These storylines haven't finished, right? Everything is serial now, so we're jumping the gun a little bit in terms of whether or not there can be good setups and payoffs here. But I was not enthused after the pilot.
I've never jumped a gun in my life.
I refuse to believe that.
All judgments are final.
There you go.
It's done.
I would love for it to be great. This is the thing that people get on my case for. Is like, you're always so negative about these things. It's like, I think we live in a current status quo where a lot of the products they try to sell us are pretty negative, and they're deserving of negative criticism. But I come into all these wanting to love them. If I came out of that loving Halo as the pilot, I would be thrilled. I just didn't.
That's where I am with Amazon's Lord of the Rings. I mean, there's a lot of negativity. There's so much negativity about it, and I'm like, please, I'm out here, like I'm like, I really am worried about a lot of the stuff I'm seeing. But God, I hope it's good. I hope it's good. I have the faith that maybe it could be. I mean, Amazon has put out good shows. I mean, they're not making them, but they're exclusive. Like Reacher's really good. The Expanse is really good. Like I know that Amazon can have a good show run on the platform, so please be good. But I'm really concerned about it. So I'm with you. I'm like, please, like
the world would be a better place if it was awesome. It just would. But everybody that's currently worried about it is entirely justified.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. It is time. It's time for the Daily Unbreaded.
I'm going to sit back.
Okay. So here we go. Let's see. Unbreaded. Speaking of operatic thematic music,
that was better than Halo, the show.
Oh God, poor Halo. So here we go. Random number generator. Page 589 is what we do. Now, I have the PDF. The PDF is 803 pages, but there are a couple blanks in there. So I go by the PDF page number because it's easier than trying to suss out the number that's on the bottom of the pages and stuff like that. Now, I will warn you, there's some very offensive language in this thing, and I have censored that language because I can't be clipped saying the N-word a whole lot. But the guy who wrote this is black, so he had the N-word pass. So I think that is fair. It's just gotta warn you. Oh yeah, there it is. There's some stuff right in the beginning. But so how I do this is I read this completely out of context for what the preceding and following pages are. We just go with the flow. So I'm gonna just do it unless you want to read it. I'm
gonna take a pass on that, Nick.
I thought you might, but I didn't want to be a rude host.
No, I appreciate it. Appreciate the accommodation.
Okay, so here we go. Set fire in the woods near mansions or gated communities. Do this all across the country. Do it in Grapevine, Los Angeles. Do it in Boulder, Colorado. Do it everywhere rich crackers live. Even if they have insurance, they'll be horrified as they watch their mansions and wealth become a target for violence. Even if they don't catch you, how would they when the woods are impossible to watch and it takes only a few seconds to start a fire? Even if they don't catch you, the fact that fires are happening everywhere means proof that the Binger tribe is seeking revenge. Binger women are less pretty. Get over it. Yes, we still matter more. Get over it. I'd rather be with a fat white bitch than a Binger woman, but then again, I'd rather be with a skinny little blonde girl, and as long as she isn't Irish or a bike, barely counts as fucking a white bitch. Their pussies are as cheap as desert people. Irish pussy is half off. Smells bad and they ain't pretty. There's never a beautiful Irish or Scot or Welsh or English. Same shit. They all ugly. Look at the English royal family. They ugly as fuck. Diana deserved to get murdered because that bitch was a 2 out of 10. Like I said, there are no beautiful Irish women. They're okay to fuck if you want to discount white body, basically a hamburger. It does the trick. French women are overpriced Greeks. Italians are basically the same, but with more Binger blood and sometimes more Jewish features. The language of Italy is ugly. They act like they're tough because they made a few shitty movies in the 70s. Let me promise you this, their food is shit. It's just heavily discounted by farmers getting government money. Italians are ugly. I only like Scandinavian and Germanic bitches, but unfortunately, they go downhill by 22 to 23. Blonde girls basically peak around 17. Everyone knows this. The white bitch's skin is unbeatable in her youth, but the reason we call them crackers is that they age like they got a truck of acid dumped on them by their mid-20s. If you blink, your cracker girlfriend might look old and shitty by the time you open your eyes again. Trust me, it happened to me. I deserve to move to a town where there are young blondes who have never seen a Binger before. If I can't have that, then I don't care that society is declining into terrorism and genocide because fuck you. I'm not having children, but it's better to fuck a white bitch whose parents would kill her for having Binger dick than to be all friendly and integrated to the point that blinks are singing out our music. Bingers should be the richest race, not immigrants. Bingers should kill immigrants because we are the beginning of history. We started time. We are the only tribe with souls. All other tribes are toys for us to murder and rape as we please. Are you experienced? It's 2 Stacks Records. It wasn't until later that Jimmy got into his more free music. The bike rapper just copied Are You Experienced and said it was a big deal.
Jesus Christ. You know, it's 3 a.m. and I don't know what the hell I just listened to.
No one does. Oh, wait, I gotta do this real quick. I'm ready.
So, in terms of scale here, is that like the normal level of offensiveness for these pages? Was that a high level? Was that a low?
It's pretty standard. It's pretty standard. This one had a little less truth in there than some of the pages. You're like, he's got a point, and then he's like, rape all white women. You're like, well, he doesn't have that good of a point though.
Wow. No, I was not prepared. I fully admit that you got the warning. I appreciate the warning. I'm very impressed by your ability to censor on the fly. I would be petrified of that.
It took a little grow. Like I almost slipped up one time.
Okay, sure.
But at first, the flow of reading the pages was a little slower, and then working out the words. Like, how am I going to get this word in and across without actually saying the word? Because this this is this guy's ideas. I obviously love white women. I'm married to one. But he is.
I think it goes without saying, but I think we should say it anyway. Of course, that we don't endorse whatever the hell that was.
Except about Italians, I don't like those guys.
Oh my god! It was a trip. I think I might be dreaming. Wow.
It might be a nightmare, frankly.
It's yeah, no. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that experience with me.
Sorry. It's become a daily staple on the channel. That's 800 days of content when you really think about it that way.
Does your random number generator pull out the other numbers that you've already hit?
No.
So it's infinite content.
It technically infinite.
Revisit.
At some point.
Wow. Wow.
So the unbreaded thing, real quick, it just comes from, he did a video, and people want me to play it, but I'm not going to play it. So when he did this, when he posted this thing to the board at UCLA, their message board, he also on the same day uploaded something like 200 YouTube videos in one day. And they're all.
When is this happening?
Couple months ago, 2 months ago.
Okay, so this is recent. This is just this is outside my wheelhouse. So
right. Well, it was a major news story because they shut down UCLA campus. He was in Boulder, Colorado, but they considered him, before they found him in Boulder, that they considered him an active shooter threat after he posted this, and more importantly, the emails, because I've skimmed dozens and dozens of pages of this text, and I haven't found any actual, like, this is all Brandenburg stuff, right? Like, this is offensive, atrocious language, but there's no threat in here. This is just there's no imminence to any of this stuff. But in the emails, he said, like, I'm going to, and he tried to buy a gun. He wasn't able to because he had some restraining orders that prevented him from doing that. But he basically said, I'm going to come shoot you up and kill you and stuff like that. So
that'll get you in trouble.
I didn't know that at first. So I'm like, I'm not seeing the threat here. And then the emails started to come out, and it's like, oh, there it is. That's the threat. Pretty obvious. Okay. They should have put that as the headline, but they made the headline about the crazy man's manifesto. And once they do that, you got to start reading and see what they wrote, because it's always funny.
I did in fact miss that news story. So
there you go.
I will say, throughout my lifetime, it's pretty rare when I get caught speechless on these things. I have nothing to add. Wow.
The look on your face when it was done was priceless to me.
Yeah, no. It's fine. You certainly analytically, it's amazing what the human brain can create.
You haven't seen, people want to see the video. Runkle says Harris live interview win. If they let that man out of prison, I would interview him in a heartbeat. I think that would be massively interesting content. I mean, I don't know. It'd have to be a Rumble Odyssey exclusive. There's no way you can have this guy on YouTube. That just wouldn't happen. Okay, let me pull up the initial video. It's only a couple seconds long. or it's 50 seconds.
Okay.
So, and this will give you a hint of what we're dealing with. All right, here we go. So this is Matthew Harris, and this is one of his many videos that he uploaded to YouTube on the same day. And some of them are really out there about like how white men need to kill themselves and stuff like that. Caucasoids need to end their lives or whatever. This one is just unique. And here we go.
Touchdown. Paper? Unbreaded. Nope. Hold up. Touchdown. On paper? Unbreaded. Right.
Yeah, right.
Touchdown. On paper? Unbreaded.
I see. Okay.
Touchdown. Paper? Unbreaded. Right. Touchdown. Paper? I never gave a shit. That. This was never to these. Touchdown. Paper? Unbreaded. Die.
Nailed it.
And that's the origin of the title.
Yeah, that's the origin of the unbreaded. That's where that comes from. I still don't know exactly what he means by unbreaded. There have been many theories bandied about the unbreaded and what that means, but because on paper tends to like that's lingo for on probation or under some sort of government supervision. So that could be there. Not sure what the touchdown or the unbreaded part is specifically, but
wow.
Yeah.
I've literally
you got nothing
to add. Yeah, I've seen some things I hadn't seen before. So I will take that under consideration.
Yeah. It depends.
It depends. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's wow.
Well, let's go ahead and stray into super chats and see if there are any topics we want to hit as we go through those. It's
sure.
It's and then we'll wrap up the show. Nipple Salad says Nick can't answer when 11 p.m. is. He is not a chronologist. Very true. Very true. Lieutenant Hobbit, LT Hobbit says, in my war game, this is going back to our discussion earlier of the what are they called? The mobile games. They have the gotcha games.
Gotcha games.
Yeah, the gotcha games. So in my war game, the top fighters spend $1,000 to $5,000 a month casually without hindering themselves. They work to get to a point where they could. They are from around the globe. And you know what's interesting about that? And so we were talking about how much that people spend on these mobile games and stuff, but this isn't really new. Like hobbyists, and I don't know if when they mean war game, if they're talking about tabletop war games like Warhammer 40K or whatever, but hobbyists will easily spend $1,000, $2,000 a month on Warhammer 40K stuff when they really get into it, buying terrain, paints, all the stuff that they need to do to keep building out their armies, buying new books with the new rule sets that come out. D&D people are the same. When they really get into it, they can spend a ton of money. So it's not that weird.
Sure. No, and you can't take it with you. You go find your happiness. I mean, that's fine as long as you can afford it. I think one of the worries is that maybe some people are overextending themselves on this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, like with everything on the internet, it's the accessibility that makes it, and the lack of, I think the lack of public shame, right? I think because so if I analogize things to analogize things to pornography, for example, you go, okay, well, pornography was something that people consumed back in the 80s and 90s, sure, but it was different. You had to go into a store, you had to confront a person and hand them whatever hilariously titled, tape that you wanted to buy or magazine, with some very nude female in a compromising position. And if you're buying like Barely Legal or something, people look at you like, oh, buddy, right? Like that's all happening. And there's that shame element. And in the same way with like nerd hobbies, right? You had to go to these nerd stores. They're niche. They're not always available in every town. When you do go in there, like if you're buying, even amongst nerd communities, you might be buying something that is not popular. Like if you're buying Digimon cards and it's a heavy Pokemon community, I don't know, I'm making this up, but there is some level of social ostracism and judgment that happen with gotcha games. There's secrecy. Like no one is watching you spend thousands of dollars, right?
That's true. That's true.
So I think it makes it a little bit easier for people to get into the thing, but it's just gamifying in the same way that everything's been gamified to extract money. The Bad Burrito says, they say you can't invade Russia during the winter. Well, Russia invaded Ukraine in the winter and they still haven't taken it over. So I guess the Ukraine is really Russian. There you go. That's one way to get to it. Joe Schmo 1 of 3 says, has either Nick or Hoeg been following the G4 TV drama on YouTube as they try to reboot video game coverage? And what are your thoughts? I have a little bit. What about
their
you?
names? Yeah. Well, so G4 had a bit of a controversy a little bit while ago about whether or not they were going to ascribe to certain, I don't know, it's not even political kind of concepts, but just how they were going to operate as a company. And either at the same time or about then, they started losing traction. Now, I have to say, it's unclear whether that's at all related. It was a difficult proposition as it stood. G4 was from a different time. Mm-hmm. And bringing it back as a brand, I don't know how much cachet it even had, the name G4. So they've been struggling to figure out what their place would be in a modern internet environment anyway. So I'm a little bit more reticent to apply causation standards to some, pretty strident speeches that were made and things like that. But what is clear is that the brand is struggling, that their model didn't work the way they had anticipated. They're trying different things. They're trying to figure out different things. And ultimately, I don't expect it to last for even the medium term, let alone the long term. What you want to ascribe that to, I think, is an open question. But there are a lot of people that try to get into video, try to get into content, here's the big thing, we're going to make a ton of money. And it's not the mindset of selling a TV show on a TV channel back in the day. And
yeah,
most
and
of these are failures.
They're trying to run it like that. Like that's how it looks. So Frosk came out, she said her thing that made big public waves. And public waves aren't always bad. There is good, bad publicity, and G4 might have gotten a little bit of that. Then they recently did a show. What they've been doing apparently is hiring high profile streamers, which makes some sort of sense. Like this Austin guy, I guess, on Twitch, and he did a show, or he and some other guy did a show where it's like a 70s game show, right? And it was like the opposite of the Frost speech. Did you see this at all?
All I saw was that they had a clip from Amaranth on G4, right? I mean, that's all I saw in terms of the news items here.
Yeah. So they had, what they had was 4 VTubers, very popular VTubers, Iron Mouse and some others. I don't know VTubers names. I just remember the name Iron Mouse, but they're, I tried to watch this thing before I actually had to go in and get chemotherapy to cure myself of it. But, these VTubers, they appear to be edgy on the sexualized line of stuff. And that's the VTube grift, right? You put an anime girl avatar in there, and then you make vaguely or obliquely sexualized comments. And of course, guys watch and laugh and donate money. And that goes along with the other stuff. I'm not saying that's all that before you shoujo simps come out and start telling me about how your anime girl is more than just her fake 2-dimensional tits. That's fine. I'm saying that is part of the brand, along with the comedy stuff and the commentary that they do. So it's all part of it, and it's all packaged up in this anime look. So they had them on, and so they're making edgy jokes about sleeping over at each other's houses. And I'm like, look, I know you're all 300-pound guys. It's fine. But then Amaranth pops out of a temporary hot tub full of like ball pit balls in a bikini, and it's like, this is the opposite of Frosk, but it's more in spirit of the original G4 in some way.
You're not wrong in all ways, certainly. Yeah,
right. Like the G4 knew when they hit the scene, they know 15 to 35 male is our audience. We're going to hit it hard. It's like Spike TV or any other thing. Like that's what you're doing. And
well, isn't that like Morgan Webb and Olivia Wilde? I mean, don't they have relations to G4 at the time?
They were
I might be getting my channels wrong.
No, you're right. They were on the channel. And they were, that was the whole Frost speech, was that Morgan Webb and Olivia Wilde were maybe easy on the eyes, to borrow her colloquialism, but her big grandstand was that they were never, they're not meant,
yeah, that's right.
they're not meant to be there for that. And it's like, well, but they might have been hired because of that, especially when they put them in bikinis from time to time. Like that seems to be kind of the purpose, but because the idea is get a hot gamer girl, right? Like that's every gamer guy's dream, is to get the hot gamer girl when they're young. That's what they're after. So, but the problem I had with the show, one, it was insufferable to me. And that's because it was done in the style of a TV show. It looked like a 70s game show. No, it looked like a television program doing a parody of a 70s game show. And it had all of these high profile people in there. And I was like, this costs too much for YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be what I'm seeing. Again, I haven't popped in there. I've just been following it from the business side of things. And so, I mean, I think fundamentally, however you feel about the politics at issue, the Frost speech, anything else, they appear to not have a great concept of the model. Right? I talked about Artesian Builds, and I look at that and I pop in, I say, I can't stand this guy who's talking, but I can see that this model can work because, as you suggest, they're monetizing every aspect of the process. So that can work. At G4, it's like, that's not going to work. Like your instinct when you hear about what their plan is, regardless of everything else, it's like, it's not going to work. Your brand is worthless. You don't have this nostalgic cachet that you think you do. And then you're going to run up the bill on it. That's not going to work. So none of that surprises me. Maybe the rapidity of it surprises me a bit. But yeah, so have I been following it? No, not too terribly closely, because I didn't care about it from the start. So apologies there. But I don't think it's going to work.
What would make sense for G4, if they wanted to reboot in the internet space, what would make sense to me is hire, partner with, create basically a multi-channel network, a G4 network on social media out of middle tier video game reviewers, streamers, and speedrunners. Like, do that, partner with these people and say the new G4 TV is this grassroots crowdsourced content. We're engaging and partnering with creators who we see in the video game space. We like what they're doing. We love their commentaries, their reviews, and their critiques. We also love to see them pushing new edges on speed running, and partner with those people, boost them through this channel network that then cross promotes and all of that stuff. And you've got essentially a channel, and then you put the G4 channel up, you let people multi-stream to their own channel or whatever you do. And you aggregate content for people in a way that is helpful. But if they're like, I'm going to hire these people to do this stuff and make it really produced, I think that's missing the beat on what's driving social media entertainment right now. And again, you're putting in a lot of money and you're not getting out the dollars that you want. You have to get massive on YouTube to get network level dollars.
Yeah, no, it's ill-advised. And I like the concept of MCN because you can use it to build them up. They can build you up. You can get your brand back to where you want to be. And you can, dip your toes into that. If you want to produce stuff, that can work. You can make expensive stuff on these channels, but you better have the basis and the belief and the goodwill going in. And I think they thought they had that from the name G4, but they don't. So it was always a miss to me. So I think a little bit the rest of the stuff is a sideshow. I know a lot of people are reporting on it. I think it's worth reporting on, but the business was screwed up from the start.
I agree. You just didn't, like you said, you didn't have the cachet you thought you had. And that's the big problem on YouTube, especially if you're going to invest a ton of money on these platforms that don't have guaranteed payouts. You better have a base to round it out. Thermasius 1980 says, got some cheap tequila, tastes like I feel, crushed hopes and shattered dreams. Kidding, but only a little. Oh man, I hope things get a little better for you. Double Brewski, I'd like to have a serious conversation about my plan to dismantle parts of the NFA and GCA of 68 with a qualified lawyer who won't charge me a consult fee. If not, who might you recommend? I don't know, man. One, if you find an NFA lawyer who practices in that field, they may give you a free consult, but it depends on what that consult is for. Typically, if you've got a consult, you're looking at 30 minutes to an hour to pitch the reason why they should accept representation of you on a particular lawsuit. And that's those reasons are either you're going to pay them the retainer with an hourly rate guarantee, or you've got a case that's rock solid that they could take a contingency on that's going to have a payment attached to it. Or third, if they do public interest pro bono work, you pick that bone and say this is in your model and mission for public interest. Those free consults to lawyers are free because that's your sales pitch opportunity for them to then turn that into either mission or money. And that's what I got to tell you. But the best way to do that would be to try and find some NFA attorneys who deal in this particular field and say, hey, I've got an idea or an approach to dismantle it. But if your idea or approach to dismantling the NFA isn't, I've got this lawsuit, this thing happened to me, and I think that this will allow us to attack this thing in this way, and it's like you're going to require like legislation and all this stuff, you're probably not going to get a lot of bites, unfortunately. I don't know. Do you have any different opinion than that?
Well, I'm in the transaction world, but I mean, the one thing I do tell people is any decent lawyer will give you 15, 20 minutes of their time to talk about what you might be looking at. And if they're not willing to do that, then honestly, they're not worth it. But yeah, they're evaluating you as much as you're evaluating them. And honestly, depending on your practice, it's one of the things that somebody like me has to be very careful about. We can't have a lot of ill-spent time, a lot of inefficiencies. So you got to make sure it's a good match for what you do, what your personality is, and yeah, I've sent really good clients that certainly made somebody a bunch of money elsewhere because it's like this isn't going to work. So it's part of the process. But every decent lawyer will give you a little bit of time because they have to evaluate what you got as well.
The answer super chat came in from Benjamin Blatt, who is a gun attorney who deals with NFA issues. By the way, he said my ears are burning. Did someone call for a gun lawyer? So Double Brewski, if you're there, look up Benjamin Blatt. That's his name. You can find him. We've looked at some of his stuff. He's funny. He's in the fight over gun rights. Like he's in that fight with ATF and stuff like that all the time. But saying my problem is I will get these emails from time to time and it's someone saying, I want to dismantle X. And it's like, but if you don't have a lawsuit or a controversy, it's hard for a lawyer to help you dismantle it. Not that you shouldn't try, but that might be the wrong tree. So I don't know what you fully mean by that, but check out Benjamin Blatt, drop him an email, say, hey man, can you help me out on this? I'd like to talk to you. And maybe he can, or maybe he can refer you to someone who can. RW Bimby says, Hoeg, anime waifu, elf, cat girl, or vampire lady?
Let's see. When I was a young man, my favorite stuff was cosmic princesses.
Okay. Cosmic princesses, like the Voltron princess.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
The She-Ras of the world,
Sure. I get you. Yeah. Yeah. Dermy Wormy says Eric Rollon is in Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Oh yeah. Yeah, he is. That's great.
Tiny Tina's Wonderland has a crazy cast.
Yeah. Eric's a friend of the show. He made me a whip out of paracord. I don't know what to make of that. That's very, very dangerously weird. But yeah, he's great. Bogey 34 says, Hoeg, do you drink? And if so, what? If not, no problem. L'chaim.
I drink only occasionally. I'm not a teetotaler in the fact that I don't. When I do drink, I tend to like a mixed drink called a Madras. That I usually, I order it. I can't make it. It's essentially, hell, you'd have to look it up. It's the only thing that I've found that I enjoy at these at events that you go to and things like that. But for the most part, I'm not. Family history in general suggestive of why I do that.
Audris mixed drink, vodka cranberry cocktail recipe, unsweetened cranberry juice, orange juice, maple syrup, vodka, lime. Sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a vodka-based drink. I have no idea what goes in it.
Yeah, vodka, cranberry, orange juice, and spritz lime. Sounds delicious.
It's my favorite.
I would drink the hell out of that.
It's my favorite. I can't remember who introduced it to me. I think it was actually my wife. So, you know, you go to mixers and things when you're at a law firm, and you're supposed to maybe do a little drinking to be social. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, one day early in our marriage, she got like 7 different mixed drinks that are like the top of the things that people order. And we just tried them all. And so I found one that I could order. And that's what I did. But it's not usually the direction I go. Have to be honest.
All through law school, I drank vodka cranberry juice. That was my go-to mixed drink. It's really simple, but it's tasty. It's just good. So that's like that's a twist. It's a little farther than a vodka cranberry, but that sounds really good. Next time I go traveling, I'll probably drink some of that.
Check it out. Occasionally, you'll get it to a place that doesn't have any idea what it is. And then you'll have to say, well, ask Nick. He looked it up for me that one time.
There you go. Kevin Dorr says Hoeg spent a ton of money on his background.
Are you kidding me? It's fantastic, don't you think? I can edit myself out. I can put myself in space. It's fantastic.
It's a Chrysler Dodge orange. I love that color. Like, I really do. Yeah, that burnt orange is great.
Yeah, no, it is.
Noble Demon Tim says, which licensing issue is more likely to get resolved? Katakawa Anime plus EMI times DDR reunion, or the sequel for Tatsunoko versus Capcom?
You're asking me? I don't know.
I don't speak that language. I don't speak that language.
I apologize.
Let's say Tatsunoko versus Capcom. That's the one.
Capcom, I recognize.
Eric Winberg says Jeremy's Razors featured on Tucker, 5.9 million views. Yes, that is the Daily Wire's response to Harry's Razors, dropping them. Ooh.
A very amusing video.
Matthew Maddox says a civil case out of Texas, 420 CV 00321. That sounds like a federal case. A UNT professor fired over his free speech had some fun movement this week. Oh, okay. I'll throw it into my, I'll see if I can throw that into my search bar or whatever and maybe look at it. I have no idea what that is. University of North Texas, huh? Okay. Next is me04120 says Sony could have bought Nicky Rackets for less than $4 billion to teach them how to grift. Disney is not even allowed on Twitch. Beta. Are you familiar with Jesse Lee Peterson?
No, not at all. Who is that?
Beta. That guy.
Well, there you go. You got me.
He's a conservative Christian talk show host. He's hilarious. He does, in my opinion, the single best interviewer on the planet.
Okay.
He does not let people not answer questions. He will just steamroll over and over asking the same question. Like this question, for example.
Do you love black people?
Well, Richard, do you love black people?
I love all people.
Do you love black people?
But do you love black people?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. You answered correctly. Nailed it. It took Anthony like 9 tries to answer that question.
But the answer is yes.
That's all you had to do is just say yes. Of course you did. Ridiculous. Noble Demon Tim says try buying an officially licensed Azur Lane scale figures. Prince Eugen figures are already getting scalped to over $1,000 USD. Yeah, the figure community. Holy crap. The like the little anime statues or whatever. I just pre-ordered today my Ultramarine Primaris Captain from Bandai. It's $240.
Woo.
And I was like, these things started out at $100 and now they're That's the pre-order. That's not even scalper prices. Noir777 says Vicarious Visions also did the great THPS remaster.
They did.
What's THPS?
Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Oh, yeah. Dude, there's a song on the Tony Hawk soundtrack that was available on the playable demo. It's called Running in a Cyclone. And I think it might have been Pro Skater 2. And that song runs through, like it's running through my head right now at all times, because I worked at Circuit City and we had the demo version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 or 2, whichever it was, on PlayStation 2. And we would sit there and play that demo level over and over. And they would play, it was that and a Goldfinger song, Here in Your Bedroom. Those two were the only two songs on the demo. And it's like, God, I know those songs so well that it's pathetic.
I wonder if they made it into the remaster, because they didn't get all the songs back for the remaster. I don't know.
Wait. Oh, no, that's right. It was Goldfinger was Superman, not Here in Your Bedroom. Shit. Thank you. It was Superman. Damn it. Double Brewski says, did you skip my super chat or was it censored? I don't skip super chats intentionally. But I do address the $20 super chats first, and the rest of them tend to come at the end of the show. Sometimes it goes a little different, but that's the basic format. Speaking of Rumble, Falling says, I need good counsel against my college, a mean one. You know what? You might want to look up lawyers who have successfully litigated against your college in the state that you're in to check that out. Find guys with a track record of success and how they've gone about it. Because sometimes they get really good at either negotiating with opposing counsel or knowing how to destroy opposing counsel, and that can be very beneficial. Lots of lawyers who go after insurance companies become very good at going after particular insurance companies. Joshua Sanabria says, it's been forever and a day. New position leaves me no time for watching. Listening now as I drive. Hey, Josh, I hope that's what I want people to do. I want people to succeed so much that they can't listen to the show. That's awesome. Lieutenant Hughes says 3 months as a paralegal, you boomer. It says 6 months. Potentially criminal. Read that one. Michael Payne says, how much do you think it would take for Legal Eagle to read an unbreaded page? What's his price? You know him better than me.
Man, I think there's a number.
He's got to be one.
Probably not as much as you think is what I would argue. I don't know what his number is. He's doing okay on YouTube. So
yeah, if I'd give him $1,000 to read one uncensored.
Uncensored? He's
uncensored.
I wouldn't guess he'd go for 1,000 on that.
Right. I don't think so either, but $2,000 to read it uncensored. And I would get to put it on my channel, the clip of my channel.
All right. The clip's under your control. I can't see anything less than 5 figures.
So you think 10 grand?
At least.
God, I don't know if I can make it back on that. Uncensored.
There might not be a number for uncensored.
Yeah, it's really a tough prospect, right? Because that's the thing. Like I don't care about words. They are inherently meaningless to me. And I no word in particular is overly offensive to me. However, like the problem is today you can get clipped out on anything and people will ignore the context. It's like, well, I was reading from something. So, well, too bad. Like
this guy in Minnesota paid me 10 grand.
Yeah. But like back in the Stream Me days, I actually did a video reading through Brandenburg versus Ohio, and they quote the speech in Brandenburg versus Ohio, and
directly.
It is highly, highly offensive material, right? And I did it uncensored. So shockingly, it wasn't clipped out and taken out of context. But it's like, but I'm reading one of the most important free speech decisions from the Supreme Court. This is the language there. It's like people don't really care anymore what your source is. Like, why are you doing that? It's like, well, because freedom matters. I don't know. Like that's my answer.
Well, I think you get dinged for it immediately on, now with your profile on YouTube and everything else. Certainly YouTube would kill it immediately.
Do you think so?
I think
Unless it's over, If it's over 2 hours, that's a thing I've learned.
Do their
After
robots
2
stop at
hours,
2 hours? Okay.
community guidelines robots do not. So
Okay.
if you start, like, if you get 3 hours in, you're like, the election, like, you're done. You'll be toast. As soon as they find it, you're gone. But on just monetization stuff, 2 hours, past 2 hours, you can say almost whatever you want. I've tested the system pretty well. I haven't dropped a bunch of N words because I don't.
Say, what do you mean you tested the system? Like you're doing things at 158 and trying to 204 and seeing what happens?
Well, no, you just wait till 2 hours in, and then you drop a bunch of slurs, right? Like, and stuff that would normally, or talk about subjects that would normally be demonetizable, and you'll find they get monetized because they don't
Interesting.
review past 2 hours. It's weird. Like
Interesting.
right now, if you open a 10-minute video and start talking about kid porn, like, it's going to be demonetized, right? Like, and I'm talking about, let me rephrase that very carefully. A lawsuit about
Yes.
kid porn. Like, for example,
That's how I
Ketanji
read
Brown
it, yeah.
Jackson,
Mhm.
right? So like my streams, I did a stream going through Wesley Hawkins's case, the big 3-month case. And we went through the FBI documents. I didn't even try to monetize that because there's no way. This is about child abuse, and they're not gonna, YouTube won't do it. But if it's after 2 hours of otherwise non-offending content, they will.
Interesting. It's a cost saving measure. They assume that you're clear at that point in time.
Yeah, it's wild.
Interesting.
And yeah, I've tested it fairly well with some edgy stuff. Alex Sargent says, longtime viewer, needed this after a rather shit day. Keep up the good work. Hey man, I hope your day gets better. I hope this has made your day a little bit better. That would be great. But if not, hopefully, your weekend gives you some time to recharge and relax. Back to Falling over on Rumble says, how and where to look. Okay, so how to find good counsel against your college. It is hard to do this for lawyers. But one thing I would do is say, look up lawsuits against your school. Like, just Google the school name and a lawsuit. See if there's any lawyer names attached to it. Give them a call. They might not be the right firm. They may know who is. Try that out. That's your first step. Google to see if there have been any lawsuits against your school. I don't know what school you're at, so it's hard to say, and you may not want to say it publicly, and that's fine. But certainly start there. Otherwise, just look up civil litigators in the state. You can go to the phone book and look up lawyers and just start making phone calls. Call people in the phone book. Say, hey, what about this? If you're looking at people who have successfully taken on college, you might be looking at some medium to larger size law firms to do that. Or there's a boutique shop that just really does, like, we do Title IX. That's what we do. And that could be the case. Yorick says, Nick, speaking of vices, who do you think drinks more? Quantity, not quality. Lawyers or veterans? Combat only, not the logistic bubbas. I don't know how much veterans drink. Like, my prejudices would say it's probably a lot due to trauma and all of that stuff. But I know how much lawyers drink, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So I'm sticking with lawyers for now, but I would be happy to be corrected. I just don't have enough experience drinking with veterans. I'll gladly pick up more, though, if any veterans are out there. Alan Sneed says, glad to see you read Super Chats more often versus making an entire stream dedicated to reading them. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Alan. His tune will change very soon, by the way. Ben Frail says, celebrating Tolkien Reading Day with a 12-year-old Dimple and Lord of the Rings. Ooh. Are you a Tolkien fan?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
What
other fantasy sci-fi stuff do you like to read?
So we just had a film made out of one of my favorite books, which is Dune. And really only the first Dune for the most part. It's one of my favorites. Lord of the Rings is one of those rare instances where I really like the books. I actually think that the Peter Jackson trilogy works better at delivering messages more specifically, and they don't line up with Tolkien entirely. So the purists out there it can say that, but I think those movies are tremendous. What other books do I like? I really like Michael Crichton when he was still writing. before he was incapable of writing anymore.
Are you a Dan Simmons fan at all?
I don't know him. No. What is
Okay.
he?
I make this recommendation to everybody. It's my favorite 2-book series, I guess, but
Okay.
it's my favorite sci-fi fantasy story. It's called Ilium and Olympus
All right.
by Dan Simmons. Ilium's like 600 pages. Olympus is like 800. They're kind of thick, but it starts off like this. Hockenberry is a 19th century or 20th century scholar on the Iliad, right? And he's resurrected 3,000 years in the future by what appear to be the Greek gods who are not literate to watch the Trojan War and make sure it is proceeding as it's supposed to. Because the only god who knows God who knows how it's supposed to go is Zeus, but all the other gods don't. And that's how it starts, and it gets way crazier from there. I love this book. I've read it.
Sounds very interesting. Yeah. No, I've been reading through The Expanse lately because I hadn't read the books.
Ooh, are they good? The show is great.
I think the Expanse books are very cinematic and very zippy in terms of flow. I wouldn't characterize their prose as particularly special. Their plotting and their character is much better than their descriptors. But that doesn't make it bad or wrong. So, there's a bunch of authors that have too much poetry in their descriptions as well. But I think the Expanse books are very good, and they're reflective of a TV show that really got 90% of them, as far as I've gotten in the series, up on screen. So it's a good read. It's a zippy read. They're very fast reading books.
I might check them out because I really enjoyed the show, and Amos is best boy.
Yep, and you get more Amos lines in the books. So,
Bad Dragonite says, correction, Konami knows at least one thing besides pachinko, and that's Yu-Gi-Oh.
Sure, fair. Konami is just one of those sad tales in video games because they are a part of the history and legacy of games in a very important way, and they aren't interested in participating any longer.
And we need our Konami code back, right?
Well, everybody uses it now. That's funny.
Yeah.
You can do a copyright video on that and why it's not a problem.
There was a bit where Nick's Discord was flooded with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And this is why Discord needs to be purged from everything. He also follows, if I recall correctly, the old Eastern justification for microtransactions is that it's unfair for a person who works the whole day to be at a disadvantage to NEETs. There you go. Alan Sneed says, how do we even find you read our super chats later? Watch to the end, buddy. He also says, then he says, the most lucky skinny fat man in the world, folks. I think he's talking about me. And then he says, of course you could have launched your own streaming site. I have no idea how to launch a streaming site. Do you?
No, it's all black magic to me. I'm a lawyer. The fact that I can, drag a file over here and use 6 apps and work them together to make that file is, frankly, it's lost institutional knowledge even to me. I figured this stuff out 3 years ago.
Yeah, I have no idea how you'd go about making a streaming platform. They're also wildly expensive.
Sure. There's a lot of costs going on behind the scenes in YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah. Caligulove says the 50+ people who lost their job because of one man's idiocy is sad. Jay's 2 cents did a great thing, though. Solid dude. Going back to the Artisan Builds. Lost Bullet says in Mr. Y voice, if you beat me in Halo, I will let your big black friend peg me, please. Wow. That's pretty accurate to who Brandon was. Ian Max says Shriver's brother, really good in American Gods. Oh, Liev Schreiber's brother is the guy who plays Master Chief. Falling says, I emailed some details just now. Okay, I'll check your email, Falling. But yeah, he says he was really good in American Gods. I never watched that. I wanted to.
When I was younger, I really liked the book.
That's Gaiman, right?
I heard, it is. It's Gaiman. And I heard bad things, and that was enough for, again, limited time, right? I heard bad things, heard it wasn't a great translation, didn't watch.
Did you, are you a fan of Good Omens, the book?
I don't know the book. I've only know, is that Amazon? Is that Hulu? It's one of those streaming services that made the that made that into a show with David Tennant. I saw the pilot of that. Dropped it.
Wow.
Too much stuff.
Yeah, I have no idea about the show, but the book is a great read.
Is it?
Really enjoyable? Yeah, I liked it. The premise of that book is that the angel who was set to guard the Garden of Eden, right, with the flaming sword or whatever, he was set, and the like the first, I think the demon who was the serpent in the Garden of Evil, they both have been on Earth for a really long time, obviously, but they've kind of become frenemies. And then they find out that someone's trying to enact the prophecy set down by this old witch that would lead to the end of the earth, and they'd have to go back to heaven and hell respectively, but they're kind of comfortable on earth and they kind of like it. So they're trying to stop it from happening. And all they have is this book of crazy prophecies from this senile witch, and everything's out of order and nothing makes sense until it's already happened. Then you look back and go, oh, okay. And God, it's a fun read. It's a great book.
I think my favorites of the comedies are Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I need to read that.
One of my absolute favorite books of all time.
How are you on Ender's Game? Do you read the Ender's Game books?
Ender's Game. I read the first Ender's Game. I didn't read any of the rest of the series.
Okay, here's what I'm going to tell you as a friend.
Okay.
You have to read Ender's Shadow.
Okay.
And then I would suggest following up with the Shadow books, because they follow Bean, right? Little Ender's little second in command or whatever. And to me, Bean is a much more interesting character. I like Ender too. I think Ender's great, but I think Bean is a more interesting character than Ender by a long shot. And Ender's Shadow,
I have heard very positive things about Ender's Shadow.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, Noir777 says they should have gotten Reacher to play Master Chief. I love that guy. He's
kind of, yeah. I mean, that's closer to what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. He's huge too. Scorching Flame says, I call BS on no showing emotions of John, like it or hate it, but Halo 4 was to show Master Chief's emotion by showing emotion in the body language. Well, that's where we got. I think that comment probably came in a little bit before you were talking about how
well, I did say that. I thought they achieved it, honestly.
Yeah, it's at the beginning of the show, you're like, they're doing the emotion through body language. And there's so many tricks that you can get around showing some face these days. Again, music, using tropey story hooks is effective to impart emotion that would be generally expected, and then let people project that emotion. That works.
It's just very odd. It's an unexpected face, and they actually in the scene that happens in, there's one that jumps out at me where they're panicking, and essentially he's looking back over his shoulder, bug-eyed, and I'm like, that's not what.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work. But hey, here's to hoping for the rest of the series.
Adam Wofford says, by the time when the Covenant and humans started fighting, most Spartan 2s were in their late 30s or 40s, and they were 6 when they were taken. The problem is some of the armor looks like Spartan 3s. So there you go. See, that's what you
take their word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you get when you're immersed in the lore of the universe, which like, I love that. Cause I love the Warhammer 40K books, right? Like that's my whole shelf over here. And the people who are like immersed in that are like, yeah, that's Mark 6 armor. That's Mark 3 armor. That's Mark 2. It's like, oh my God, how do you know this stuff?
That's a space Marine. That's somebody that he has like a blood throne. I know it from video games.
Falling also says Wizard's first rule was quite entertaining. I have not heard of Wizard's first rule. I'll have to check that out. The dude says, Nick on Unbreaded, try saying Master Chief instead of Binger. Epic. I don't know if I could say Master Chief in there with the flow of it. Ryoji, that's the thing that makes Binger so good, is that it flows with the word. Ryoji Mata says they made him into a saw pushy. He's supposed to be near emotionless, and it looks like he was made in a garage. He's also a side character in the show. Talking about Master Chief here.
Yeah, it seems likely. Although I think they could have done that more. Honestly, I think you could have done what amounts to an Ender's Shadow kind of thing with the people that are surrounding these, mechanical monster people. If you wanted to take it in a different direction, but they didn't. They didn't do that. He's still the main character.
Brabble Master says this show is placed in 2552. The war starts in 2525 when the Spartans were around 13-ish. Show takes place in a different universe from the games.
Fair enough.
Ryojimata says Chief's actor is also a garbage person on Twitter. They're an actor. I don't know what to tell you. Actors, for me, if someone's an actor, I just never look at their Twitter. Because
I'm a big fan of separating art and artist. I don't know how you can survive that without doing that. At this point, regardless, honestly, any kind of political persuasion you might have, some actor's going to disagree with you on something.
Right. How would you get wonderful masterpieces like John Carpenter's Vampires if you hate James Woods? Daniel Tome says Taylor Hawkins died, Foo Fighters drummer, age 50. RIP to that guy. Cynthia says Emily called you feisty in her live stream tonight, letting you know in case 2 marriages don't work out and you convert to purple hair. Be nice. Emily Baker is great. Love her channel, love her show. She covers so many topics that I have no idea about, and how she follows them is baffling to me, but she does it great. She does it very competently, and everybody should check it out.
I concur.
Mike Margiota says, got jumped outside a bar tonight, but I have the guy's info because he paid his tab. Thinking about hiring a Baker and McKenzie. I'm in North Carolina. What's your opinion on assault cases like this? If you can prove that a guy, jumped you and beat you up, you probably want to get a police report. But I would suggest talking to the law firm before you go to a doctor. Find out if they have doctors that they're, using for their expert opinions on stuff like that. But it depends on how badly you're injured and stuff like that, and if they took anything from you. But certainly there could be merit also if they have the money to pay for civil litigation. Otherwise, you get a lawyer to help you file a criminal complaint and hope that the state extracts restitution from them. Oh shit, Mandy Karaviches, I missed this one, sorry Mandy, says don't let Nick fool you, Hoeg. He hates gamer girls and internet women. There are no women on the internet. I had to ask Nick multiple times to get my ovaries back when he sex changed me to man Karaviches. It wasn't a sex change. It was just recognizing that there are no women on the internet. Sorry, man. Polaris 589 says, when will the penguins be bigger than humans again? Are you woke on the issue of penguins used to be bigger than humans and will be again soon?
No, I had no idea. Is that
you didn't know there were penguins that were bigger than humans? That's actually a thing. I learned this.
My feeling on that is that they must have been adorable. Penguins are great.
Don't things that are adorable when they're small become terrifying when they're huge?
I don't know. You see a big giant penguin, I think it could work. I'd have to see it in real life.
God, I don't want to ever see a penguin that's like 6'8".
You don't want to see a giant penguin?
No, I'd immediately be on the defensive. I don't trust that at all. I've seen how they treat other penguins. I don't want to know how they treat an outsider.
Come on, you get a penguin sliding on its belly the size of your house coming right at you. It's good stuff.
I played that level in Mario 64.
Hey. Well, you probably deserved it. You probably threw that baby penguin right off the top of the mountain.
I did. Zero Cool, thank you for dropping a super chat and not hacking the stream. Eternal Wolf, what are your thoughts on Steam Deck? I want mine desperately, but I want them to
send me the damn email.
Mine's Q3. Have you seen yours?
Yeah, I'm Q2. I'm Q2.
Oh, God, I hate you.
Yeah.
Which one did you get?
The big one.
So did I. God, why am I Q3? Oh, I'm going to be the last of my friends.
I honestly don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger on it. So maybe I can, if I do, we'll rotate one around for you.
If you want to do that, I'll happily pay you for it. No, I want to try it. I want to see how it goes. I don't know that it's the greatest thing in the world. Like, I have a Switch and I'm really bad at using the thumbstick controls on Switch, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I think I want to see more progress in this area. Nintendo's the only people doing meaningful stuff in the area on a large scale. I know there's another Steam Deck that's out there, or a precursor to the Steam Deck by an independent company, and I've seen what they did and it's really cool, but Steam has the potential to bring it to scale. and that's what I want to see more of it. William Barnes says, here are the thrill seekers, corrupt and immoral. Gennaro says, the FIRE.org, Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, had a lawyer in under 24 hours for free to defend me from my school when they violated my rights. They were amazing and saved my degree. Oh, yeah, you can check out FIRE Foundation. That
especially
one
if
guy,
it's free speech, especially if it's speech oriented.
If it's speech related on campus, definitely. Zero Cool says, they keep not sending my super chat, simping for my crappy YouTube channel, Outlaw Farms, farming microgreens and a couple of jackasses. Thanks, Nick. Hey, Zero Cool, next time tell C Goody, and he can send it to me on Discord so we make sure and get it read. When YouTube I hate when YouTube steals people's messages from their super chat. It pisses me off to no end. Because there's no way around it. It's like, oh, your message was approved, and then it doesn't show up. Margot Rana says, the Halo show lost me as soon as they race swapped Captain Keyes. Could have brought in Sergeant Johnson or made new diverse characters, but no, they went woke. Screw Paramount, won't watch another episode. There you go. Bon Necron 444 says, Nick, ever see the Lord of the G-Strings, the Lord of the Rings parody back in 2003? I haven't seen it in years. I think there was elf boobage in it. I have not watched it, but I have seen it on listings for Cinemax and stuff like that back in the day. I should do a review of it. Lord of the G-Strings would be great. Salty Dog says, I'm sure Null would know how to make a streaming service. Then again, it would be blacklisted from any source of income. Bad Dragonite, funny, the big guy in the Frost video is the completionist, John Tron's former college roommate and Razorfist's former friend. Generally, he's been cool. There you go. Seed Fan 85. Why is it fun? Why is it that it's fine for blacks to play white characters like the Keyes family, but it's not okay for whites to play non-whites like in Winx Saga? I don't have answers for this. I don't get hung up too much on the race swapping stuff in general. Like the stuff that happened in The Witcher didn't bother me, but I wasn't married to the IP, so I don't know. I don't know, because somebody makes it matter. That's why. There you go. Because Twitter exists. New Age Cuck says, cleared my first week as owner operator in the trucking industry with $8,000 after expenses in Brandon's economy. That's a miracle. Hey, keep going, buddy. That's awesome. Good money. Good money. Seed Fan says, any theories as to why in the Lord's name did they not just tell a story that took place with different Spartans while Master Chief was in cryo?
They made choices.
Not all of them well advised.
They could be. I don't know. You read these interviews, you look at these various things. It seems to me like they wanted to use the brand, they wanted to use the armor, they wanted to use certain aspects of it. They didn't want to be tied to basically anything. So it's essentially like a multiverse project. So you got some characters, you got some name swaps, you maybe have some other things that'll wind up being swapped or changed or moved around later on in the series. They just didn't want to be bound to anything. And okay, but then as a Halo fan, why should I care? You're going to have a tougher road to go down with me.
Well, I mean, the main reason is an exec says Master Chief sells. We know Master Chief sells. If we come up with a different Spartan, it may not sell. I mean, and they're likely wrong on that, because Halo, the brand, will sell the material. I think ODST, right, wasn't even about Spartans at all. It's you're playing human characters. And so you can show that they can do this, but that's just how it goes. They're like, we're going out on a limb. There's a lot of money in this. We're going to do it this way. And we're going to have Master Chief in there because damn you, if we don't, this thing could tank. But Toxicity says, did you ever read The Last Shadow? If not, throw it in the garbage where it belongs. I have not. Oh God, is it bad? That sucks. Sean W says, we need a Lord of the Rings with all the races swapped. Yeah, elves or dwarves. That'd be funny. Well, there we go, man. That's the super chats, and it is really late. I really appreciate it. I know this is still late for you.
I'll just pass out on camera. You just keep going. It'll be okay. I know the funny thing is I've got my question time live stream in 7 hours.
All right.
We're gonna do our best.
So they can find that over on your channel in 7 hours.
Yeah. So it's one of the things I do is a monthly patron ask questions, but generally speaking, they don't take up the whole time. So then the community chats with me about whatever. Really exciting stuff. What kind of pickles do I prefer? Various other things that people like to ask about. So come on over. We'll be up at 11 a.m. Eastern, God willing, on my YouTube channel, answering questions, talking about whatever you want to talk to me about. I know certain people are upset. I did an interview with Hogwarts Legacy, if you aren't familiar with, one of the lead developers, effectively got canceled a little bit last year for a YouTube channel that he had. And so I did an interview with him. And some of my people are upset that I wasn't harsh enough against him. Interviews are interesting because I want to get the information out. I figure you don't want to talk about me so much. But I'm sure that'll come up tomorrow. And if you have any other questions, like why am I showing up on Nick's channel? Some of my commenters might ask that.
Tell me about that unbreaded segment you did.
Yeah, that'll be it. They'll be like, how could you just sit there? It's like, I was shocked.
Here's what you say to those people, and you need this. You need this in your arsenal. You need to just say beta, just like that. Anytime they have a problem with anything you do, because what you do is good.
The internet's a funny place, right? Because one of the reasons we even got together for this particular stream is I had a sequence of commenters being like, you should go on with Nick. Have you heard of Nick? These are topics that he's interested in and this kind of thing. I'm like, I spent like my entire November with Nick.
You were on lots of Rittenhouse streams. It was great.
What are you talking about? But yeah, no, this was great. 4 a.m. is not usual for me. I'm getting up there in age. But no, I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. And I thank you for the invite. Yeah, come on over. Come check the virtual legality. Subscribe, do all that fun stuff for engagement. I can't even give the full pitch. It's so damn late.
Oh, we got four quick chats have come in.
Oh, Jackson, sure, okay.
Jackson Kai says, if Hoeg doesn't know much about 40K, ask him which god he worship: Korn, Nurgle, Slanesh, or Sinch.
Okay, help me out, Nick. Which one is blood for the blood god?
Korn.
I'll go with that one.
Good answer. Pastor Flash says, bought and listened to Larry Correa's audiobook, Tom Stranger, read by Adam Baldwin. I recommend people giving it a listen. Story is good and Adam is great.
Fan of virtual legality.
Wait, what was that?
Adam Baldwin, fan of virtual legality. Yeah.
Awesome. I interviewed Larry Correa. I say Correa, but Larry Correa the other day. Fantastic, fascinating guy. Definitely check him out. I'd love to talk to Adam Baldwin someday. I like that guy a lot. Kiernot says, did we ask Hoeg the balls or no balls question? No, and stop it, you disgusting degenerates. And Miku Huntu says, have Styx, Hex, and Hammer on. Clankers unite. We were talking about a show a long time ago, and then the Rittenhouse stuff happened. I just have not gotten back to him, which is my bad, but I'm bad at scheduling interviews. There we go, man. Let's wrap up the show. And thank you so much for coming on. Again, one more time, guys, click Richard's name, Hoeg Law, in the description, and it'll take you right to his channel and give him a listen, especially if you want to hear the latest video game legal related news. He's the guy. Nobody else does it like him.
Hey, I appreciate it.
My pleasure, buddy. All right, I'm going to play the outro, and until next time, guys, peace. Peace.
Oh, he drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along. With his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight, we'll hear some law-splaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitterland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair and and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an ardbeg about more of that broad. The spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea, post on Twitter as we hear Lost Painting tonight. From the wide shores of Nam to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the wrong better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Dante to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea, post on Twitter as we hear Lost Painting tonight. From the wide shores of Nam to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the wrong better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law